Hello and welcome to Sunday Sinfest on this very frosty Sunday morning, January 18th, 2026. We're live here from the shithole of the universe, Memphis. Nah, I kid. We're actually not doing Hovind this morning. I mean, we will later, but right now, we're actually going to look at this video. It's from a few years ago from Indian Hills Community Church. What year is it? Yeah, like 6 years ago. So this has been a while. Um, Called The Ultimate Proof for Creation. So let's just see what we get, shall we? This should be fun.
It's good to be with you this evening, and I'm going to talk about the ultimate proof of creation.
Oh, it's so nice to have a video where the audio is actually worth a damn.
That ought to be worth something right there. I'm going to do a lot of, we'll talk about the science of creation tomorrow and some on Sunday as well. But the ultimate proof of creation is a little different from the kinds of arguments that most people hear for biblical creation. I
Oh, okay. This is even better. It's going to be stuff I haven't heard 1,000 times over.
do believe that Genesis is accurate in the history that it gives, and that the science confirms that. But you can't know everything about science, right? Even in my own field of astrophysics, I don't know everything in my own field. There's too much to know. And even my specialty field,
This guy's name seems awfully familiar. I'll probably look him up on the laptop real quick while this plays, because I think I already know where this clown is from.
the correlation tracking of mesogranules on the solar photosphere. I don't even know everything about that topic. So my point is, you can't know everything about everything. And so those people who try to say, well, my ultimate bulletproof argument will be this particular area of science, you got to be careful about that, because there's always somebody smarter. There's somebody that knows more about it than you do. Is there an argument, therefore, that you can learn that it doesn't matter how smart the person is, they will not be able to defeat the argument? And the answer is yes, there is. And I want to give that to you this evening. And it is different from the kinds of arguments that you've heard before, but it is powerful. And when you use this ultimate proof on people, and I would encourage you to do so, you may find that they do or do not convert right away. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And
wow, you find that they may or may not do one or the other from a binary set of options. Thus, you will 100% get these results. And by convert right away, or not convert right away, that not convert right away might be never convert. Let's just add that that's a factor.
You might get discouraged. You might think, well, maybe my argument's not that great if the person didn't convert. Well, not necessarily. People are not always converted by a very good argument, right? People are not always rational. That doesn't necessarily mean there's anything wrong with the argument. It might mean there's something wrong with the person. And we know that there is something wrong with people. People are irrational because we're sinners and we're resistant to God. Unless He changes our hearts, we'll continue to be that way.
Yes, of course, the classic blame the person, not the fact that the evidence is wholly inadequate. And by evidence, I mean the claims being made by those of you peddling particular fairy tales. Yes, of course.
But my point is, there's a difference between proof and persuasion. I can't ultimately persuade anybody. I can be persuasive in the way that I try to explain things, but it's ultimately up to God to change a person's heart. All I can do is make an argument, and I can make an argument that's bulletproof, that there will be no rational response to that argument. So just keep in mind, just because somebody doesn't cry uncle doesn't mean you don't have them in a headlock, right? And so this is an ultimate proof. They will not be able to respond to it. Words might come out of their mouth, but they won't be a rational response to this argument that I'm going to present.
Oh, as opposed to the incredibly rational logic that creationists have consisting of nuh-uh and my book says a thing.
To you this evening, and that ought to be very powerful. And again, this whole thing, it's not about winning arguments. We want to win people. We want to see people saved. And people have said, well, that's a gimmick or something. I'm not presenting a gimmick. I'm presenting a method of exposing truth. That's all it is. And it's very powerful because it will expose the truth. And that's what I want to share with you this evening. I'll start with some lines of evidence that people often use that they think proves creation.
And yeah, looking dude up real quick, he has been tied to ICR and AIG. So yeah, I knew the name was familiar enough. Sheer coincidence I picked this by the title. I didn't even think about the person giving the presentation. So Funny, it's a very small circular world. Hell, there's an AIG video that opens with a short clip of Kent Hovind. The YouTube preview showed it, and I'm like, really? From 2 months ago, and they're going to put in a Kent Hovind clip? They don't even like him.
But it falls short of an ultimate proof. So let's start with that. And we'll hit these more tomorrow as well, because I think there's good science out there that confirms creation, but it's less.
Yeah, and looking you up, dude, as soon as you got your PhD in astrophysics, you immediately switched over to creationist apologetics. So you got a degree in something that you gave a dang about, but it seems like only as a means to an end.
Than ultimate. There's an entire field called information theory that deals with how information is transmitted and goes from one source to the next and so on. Dr. Werner Gett, one of the world's experts on information theory, says when its progress along the chain of transmission events is traced backwards, every piece of information leads to a mental source, the mind of the sender. So if you
Yes, because in this context, information is going to be defined as something that a mind has constructed. You're going for the DNA as information argument, and that's just not the case. We can conceptualize it as information, but that doesn't make it this nebulous concept of information, which really is just a concept. We extract information from things, from crazy cryptographs we called writing, from auditory spectra that our brain process as the form of speech, music, auditory language. Information isn't a real thing, but it's an understood facet of minds, of pockets of some sort of abstracted concept. It's really what it is. It's a way to abstractly cement an abstraction, one could say.
find information, it has to come from originally a mind. Now, a mechanical machine like a Xerox machine can copy information. It can copy a book and so on.
Dude, how old are you?
But it can't generate new information. Only a mind can do that.
Except that if you just have a copier, just copy whatever, especially an old analog copier, depending on any kind of situation where it might pick up a slightly different tint in something, like in the blank nothingness, or if you just leave the scan bed open and copy, you're going to get something new that's not an exact printout of the scan bed. There will be aberrations due to inaccuracies of equipment, vary on the temperature, what have you. One could argue, using your very loose concept of information, that the different specs that may form are in and of themselves information. Because you define the idea so loosely.
And that's very interesting because what do we have in DNA? We have information. The information to...
Except we don't. We have chemicals. It's all chemical reactions. It's not information. See, you say you're going into stuff that we're not going to have heard before, but all we're doing is hearing the same stuff we've always heard.
Make you is stored on a very long molecule that's in the cells of your body, that DNA, and that has all the instructions to make you included.
No, it contains chemical sequences that could be seen as an instruction if you think about things mechanistically in a way analogous to computer logic, to procedural logic, that will result in particular proteins and the like being formed that will eventually constitute you.
Nucleotide base pairs. And we'll see how that works for those of you that are able to come to the session tomorrow.
Now, you're an astrophysicist. Why are you talking about DNA?
But in any case, my point is, the information that you got it from your parents, they got it from their parents, and so on and so forth, all the way back to Adam and Eve. They got it from God.
Citation needed. Also, Bible does not count as a citation. You have nothing. Remember, the Bible is the claim. Once you remember that and don't let them trap you into individual facets of the Bible needing to be attacked or defended or being asserted, any of it being asserted as accurate is in and of itself the claim. So the book value of the book itself is what's to be challenged.
And so you see the laws of information confirm biblical creation. They're consistent with what we understand about genetics, that information had to come originally from an author of information. That author's God.
Except you're totally wrong. You've taken a distorted concept of information and plastered the what was a reasonable definition that I was able to extrapolate the context around to apply to anything that can be analogized as. Is that a word? Analogize? An analogy can be made of to quote unquote information as one colloquially thinks of it. And thus, you've asserted that because of this perversion of actual meaning and of actual concepts, if you squint your eyes and turn your head just the right way and look at it, oh, it's information, so it has to come from a mind. It's always word games with you people.
Mutations don't help. They might increase survival value in certain instances, but all point mutations that have been studied on a molecular level turn out to reduce the genetic information, not to increase it. Not even one mutation has been observed that adds a little information to the genome. So my point is genetics and information theory.
Except that if you do use the loose definitions of information, it most certainly does, but even then, it's irrelevant. Mutation, genetic patterns and sequences changing happens, and it leads to variations. Whether it's new or not new, from some person's descriptor, subjective opinion on such is completely irrelevant to the fact that there are differences, and differences are known to add up. There are no limits like you all say there are, aside from, limits obviously caused by raw physics that would result in a very unsuccessful organism if they, reached too big or too small proportions. For example, in Ken Tovin's classic, you won't get a dog as big as Texas. And again, I must reiterate, you said that we were going to have new stuff here. You presented this as if it wasn't things we'd all heard constantly. I mean, this is all the same garbage.
Biblical creation, they do not confirm evolution. And that seems like a pretty powerful argument. And it is, but it's not ultimate. And I'll show you why in a minute. Another one we could talk about the age of things. I'm convinced the Bible's right about the age of the universe. It's not billions of years old, like the secularists
Except it is.
want you to believe, because they need that for evolution. But there's a lot of scientific evidence that confirms that God created thousands of years ago. The fact that we find carbon-14 in diamonds. Now, most carbon is C12. It's got 6 protons, 6 neutrons. There's a variety of it, C14, that is unstable. C14 will decay spontaneously into nitrogen. And it does so with a half-life of 5,700 years, which means if you had something that was much older than that, the C14 would be gone. And yet we find it in diamonds. Diamonds that secularists believe to be 1 to 2 billion years old. But they can't be anywhere near that because the carbon-14 would be gone. And these things are buried deep down in layers of rock that are...
Yes, layers of rock that around them will be other rocks, some of which are radioactive, some of which might fire a happy fun neutron. And since carbon really, really likes neutrons, you can get some interesting effects. Going through a very quick ChatGPT summary because I can't remember exactly how to articulate it. Carbon-14 found in diamonds exists extremely tiny contamination level traces produced by known nuclear processes and does not imply a young age because diamonds are dated by other isotopic systems, and C14 is expected to be essentially irrelevant at geological timescales. So, yeah, must stress that you don't use carbon-14 to date stuff that's that freaking old anyway. So you're going to have background noise. That's just what's going to be there. Nothing is radiologically pure like that. That's just not how the universe works.
well insulated from cosmic rays, and yet they have C14 in them. Interesting.
Yeah, but non-insulated from motherfucking neutrons. From, freaking uranium and thorium just chilling to the side. Come on, dude.
That will seem to...
Anything that's going to go through a spontaneous fission event rather than emit an alpha beta or beta particle, but go through an actual proper fission event's gonna fire off a good neutron more than likely, depending on the way it particularly wants to decay, because elements are funny like that. It's gonna hit that carbon, and oh, is it going to energize? It's going to bond.
confirm a recent creation, as the Bible teaches, and not millions of years of evolution, as the secularists want to believe. In my own specialty...
This loser is Jason Lyle. I spent a bit of time at the beginning while he was rambling, doing a slight bit of research on him to see that he is a PhD astrophysicist, but apparently immediately after getting his PhD, pivoted directly to creationist garbage and has worked with AIG and ICR. So yeah, he's one of those typical charlatans. I'd known the name before. I don't think Professor Dave has talked about him explicitly, but I'm sure he's mentioned him a couple of times because the name is just so familiar.
Field of astronomy, we have things called comets. They come around the solar system every now and then. They have elliptical paths. They go out far away from the sun, and then they come back in, and they get whiplashed back out. So that kind of elliptical orbit. And when they're far away from the sun, that ice remains frozen. They're made up of icy dirt, dirty ice balls or icy dirt balls, depending on how you look at it. And when they come close to the sun, you're probably thinking, ice close to the sun, that can't be good. And you'd be right. The sun heats that up and causes it to vaporize. And so when you see a comet's tail, that's material being depleted from the comet by solar wind and radiation pressure that's pushing it away.
Yes, you're accurate so far, but here comes where you're going to ignore a little fact.
And so we know the amount of material that's there. A comet nucleus, the actual icy source of the material, it's a few miles across, 4 or 5 miles across. The largest one we've ever seen was 40 miles across. That was unusual, though. They're usually
That's a big comet.
just a few miles across. We can measure the rate at which the material is being depleted, and we're pretty good at math, so we can figure out how long comets last, and they last about 100,000.
Are you, though? Because you think the Earth is 6,000 years old, so you're obviously not that good at math.
Years maximum. Some of them less than that. But wait a minute, the secularists believe the solar system's 4.5 billion years old. So how can we still have comets when they can't last more than about 100,000 years?
I don't know, man. If my toilet tank can hold 10 gallons of water and I flush and all that water goes down, how is there more water in the tank next time I have to use the toilet? Oh, right. Something must be refilling. It's not the best analogy because we're dealing with a fluid substance versus individual objects, but it's the same key principle. Give me a break. It's 9 something in the morning on a Sunday. No, all jokes and eccentricities aside, there's a lot of material in the Oort cloud. That material gets disturbed. It'll get sent on trajectories that bring it towards the inner solar system to where we see these comets. Comets are proto-comets, should call them, from the Oort cloud, are being disturbed and sent on trips close to us often enough. It's a pretty constant little process. Just due to the instability of the cosmos, you should understand this. You know this. No, you do know this. The problem is it goes against your magic fairy book, so you just ignore it. But yeah, new ones get sent in regularly. That's the bottom line. So, and at the scale that we see comets, we're not going to see any major change in stuff. And we're going to have plenty of them that have long periods. 100,000 years is 10 times longer than the rough range of what we consider the concept of civilization to exist as. So, the modern Homo sapien really hadn't begun the push out of Africa when a lot of these comets were already first being, flinging to us. So they've still got a long way to go. Why haven't we seen a new one? I don't know, man. We seem to see new ones every once in a while pretty dang regularly, ones that weren't documented before. Kind of make a bit of a big deal, but then people just forget about them because they're going to be gone for another 100 years. And come on.
Huh. That would seem to be a good evidence of recent creation.
Except it's not.
There's a lot of things like this, and we'll cover more of these tomorrow. But as I promised, I want to give you an ultimate proof. And these are not quite ultimate because for every line of scientific evidence that I present, an evolutionist or secularist can always invoke what we might call a rescuing device. He can come up with a hypothesis, a conjecture that protects his way of thinking, his worldview, from what appears to be evidence to the contrary. So in the case of comets, my secular colleagues, they know about comets. They can do the same math I can do. They know comets can't last billions of years. They know that. And so they say, well, there must...
Oh, and now he goes and calls the Oort cloud to be a rescue device. How cute. Oh, they go there. I really should let these clowns talk longer so I can get more pissed at them.
Must be a source of new comets, which they call the Oort cloud. And so the idea is that it's kind of a big comet generator out there beyond the farthest planets. There's supposedly a big sphere of potential comets orbiting out there, and every now and then one of them is dislodged from its circular orbit into the inner solar system, becomes a brand new comet. So as old comets disintegrate, new ones replace them. Pretty clever. Now, we don't see an Oort cloud. There's no evidence of it. If I were to ask a secular astronomer, do you have any
How about the way comets are coming in from all different kinds of angles that don't match the orbital plane of the solar system? It's kind of interesting how we got stuff kind of just flinging it whatever damn direction it seems to want to.
evidence, observational evidence of an Oort cloud? And if he's honest, he'll say, well, no. And if he's clever, he'll say, but you can't prove it's not there. I've had people say that to me. It's true. I can't disprove the existence of an undetectable.
Also, if memory serves, calculations of the orbital paths of a lot of known comets and such have shown that with the periodicity they have, there's like a similar origin distance to the parabola or something like that. It's not all 100% because these things were disturbed from their previous position, but something about the math really adds up, and I forget exactly what it is.
Oort cloud. It's undetectable. How
One little thing among many.
am I supposed to disprove that, right? By design, it's undetectable. So that's pretty hard to refute. Yeah, there can always be a rescuing device. And the good rescue.
Oh, but the creationists don't have any rescuing device. They don't constantly go towards their flood and their magic god being able to just do whatever. Oh, no, no, no. And that's totally, totally not the same as, the Oort cloud hypothesis, which evidence does point to. And just because you can't directly see it because, damn, it's far away and those things are tiny, doesn't mean it's not there. We can extrapolate things. But your deity, you're not even supposed to look for them because that's just wrong.
Devices are unfalsifiable. There's no way to test them. That's what makes them good. And so when I talk about information and DNA and how information never comes about by chance.
I mean, this should be qualification to revoke someone's PhD. The moment they start talking in this way that scientists just make up stuff, yet you have a doctorate in an actual scientific field that would be fascinating to talk to you about if it wasn't for the fact that you're a young earth fuckwit. I'm sorry, that should immediately be rescission of the PhD. Like, no, you've broken a criteria of honoring science in and of itself.
Somebody could always propose a rescuing device. Well, there's some undiscovered mechanism that produces information in DNA. We just haven't found it yet. Well, I guess it's possible. I mean, there's always something undiscovered, right? Or when I point out that there's C14 in diamonds, they could say, well, there's some kind of unknown contamination.
No, it's a known contamination. It's a very well-known one. It's understood. That's why carbon-14 doesn't matter on stuff that's most definitely not going to be the ages you clowns think it is. Also, once again, if everything is created fresh, the carbon content the C14 content in diamonds should be very, very high. I don't know why they don't see this about their C14 arguments. That if the Earth is young, then everything should show high levels. Except for pre-flood things that should, under their logic, show no levels at all, even though, again, neutrons can come from other sources.
There. We don't know what's causing it, but give us time, we'll find it.
Well, actually, with C14 isn't even direct neutron bombardment, but still.
Okay, well, that's a rescuing device. And before we're too hard on our secular colleagues, I have to point out that you have your rescuing devices too. If I were to ask you about an alleged contradiction in the Bible, how do you reconcile this? Maybe it's a verse you're not all that familiar with. How do you reconcile this with this over here? It seems to contradict. Your first inclination, if you don't know the answer, is not to throw this away and say, well, yeah, that's a contradiction. I can't be a Christian anymore.
Hope I don't have to answer this 100 times. This is some peon named Jason Lyle, who works with Institute for Creation Research and Answers in Genesis. He has an actual PhD in astronomy, but immediately after getting his PhD, went into creationist garbage.
Your first inclination is to say, well, I don't know what the answer is, but I'm sure there is one. Give me time, I'll find it. And go and research it. And there's nothing wrong with that. So my point is everybody has a rescuing device.
Easy. He gave the answers that he believes the conspiracists want him to. Plus, most astrophysics, he doesn't have to do too much lying and break, or, against what his religion says to sort of get, stuff done right, and if he picks some stuff that doesn't really affect his beliefs anywhere, some particular thing to focus for the doctor for the doctoral thesis and the like, then he was fine. But it seems like it was purely a means to an end to become some accredited pseudoscience person. Because if they got accreditation and they say it, it must be true, even though no, you're still saying stuff that's garbage, and you're saying stuff that's garbage.
Because we all have a worldview, a way of thinking about how the world works, and that affects how we look at the evidence. Creationists and evolutionists have the same world, but we draw different interpretations of the evidence because we have a different foundational way of thinking about it.
Oh, yes, yet another false equivalence. No, that's not it. You follow a prescriptive logic, a presuppositionalist logic of my book says a thing. Everything has to align with the book. Whereas those of us who actually know what the hell is going on in the universe are like, huh, this is interesting. Let's look into it further. Huh, this gets even more interesting. And we keep on drilling down and trying to understand everything we possibly can and then some.
And so I don't blame the secularist for drawing the conclusion that there's an Oort cloud. That's consistent with his belief in billions of years, which he requires for evolution, his observation that there are comets. He must draw the conclusion there's a comet generator. You see, it's consistent. On the other hand, I'm starting from my biblical creation perspective. I say, well, I don't believe the solar system is billions of years old. I see comets. I say, yeah.
Except every single piece of actual evidence points towards that. Ah, but the comets. They wouldn't even matter. They really don't in the grand scheme. It's funny that creationists always have the idea of if one thing goes against our interpretation of one thing goes against their millions of years, then the whole thing is wrong. But the Bible can be the piece of garbage that it is, inconsistent, tell contradictory stories from the get-go. And they're like, no, nothing's wrong there. And even if you found a flaw, that wouldn't discredit it. Wasn't for double standards, they'd have no standards.
That confirms. I don't need an Oort cloud in my worldview.
You just need a magical, omni-powerful entity that's somehow simultaneously beyond incompetent and all kinds of other attached baggage.
Believe comets are thousands of years old. It just fits. So we draw different interpretations of the very same evidence because we have a different way of thinking about it. And this is something that's, if you're new to this, if you're new to apologetics, it's profound. Creationists and evolutionists have the same facts. A lot of times people think the way I win the debate is I get more facts on my side. Well, I got news for you. We have the same facts.
You've never won a debate in your life, nor has any creationist.
I have access to the same fossils and DNA patterns as my secular colleagues. I look at the same stars and galaxies through my telescope that they look at. We have the same facts because we live in the same planet and we live in the same universe. We have the same facts. We do science pretty much the same way.
No, pretty much. Outing yourself a bit. Yeah, the pretty much the bit that's not the same is you guys automatically leading with your garbage.
When I mix two chemicals, they react the same way as when an evolutionist mixes two chemicals, right? We do science the same way. Science is testable, repeatable, and present.
You're an astrophysicist. Why are you mixing chemicals? How often do astrophysicists really need to mix chemicals? Because generally speaking, the kinds of compounds you'd be dealing with and the volumes of compounds you'd be dealing with and understanding astrophysics are going to be far too energetic and at far too massive a scale to really be feasible on the planet. You might have some fun with particle accelerators, but making your little baking soda volcano doesn't have anything to do with the nature of the cosmos. So what are you on about, dude? It's little stuff like that dishonesty. It's like, oh, I'm an astrophysicist, but let me start talking more and more dumbed down science things. Because when I think about a scientist, all you think of is some Einstein-looking motherfucker with two test tubes pouring the blue chemical into the red, and then it explodes in their face, and everyone points and laughs.
Present. Why then do we have such different views about origins? And the answer is because we have a different way of thinking. We have a
Why do you pronounce origins? Origins.
Different way of looking at the evidence. The evidence is out there, and it's the same for all of us. Creation.
God, these are some Ken Hovind tier slides. I mean, look at that. Biblical glasses. Evolutionized glasses. Oh, there's a new one. What the hell? Translation: presuppositionalist death cult bullshit. Reality.
Evolutionists have the same fossils. We have the same Grand Canyon. We have the same stars and galaxies, but we look at the evidence through
And yes, this worldview crap is the absolute worst.
a way of thinking, which you can think of like mental glasses. And only some of us wear glasses physically, but we all have mental glasses. We have a way of thinking about the world. You can't get away from that. Except to give up thinking. You can be a rock, and they don't have a worldview. But if you're a human being, you have a worldview. Most people have not reflected
Gotta bring rocks into this.
adequately upon their own worldview, but you do have one. It's there. And it's constantly processing everything that you see. And I like to think of the Bible like corrective lenses that are prescription. They're just for you, because the Bible gives us the correct view of history.
No, it doesn't. Oh, you're funny. You're real funny.
You put on those lenses, you see the world as it is, clearly. It's
Say it with me, everyone, from the wonderful Seth Andrews presentation. Religion reverses everything.
sharp. It makes sense. I like to think of evolution like red glasses. You put on red glasses and you look around and you say, wow, everything is red. Well, that's not true, is it? But that's what you see because
Yeah, major Ken Ham vibes. And while this dude looks like he's a reject for the monkeys, he at least knows how to shave. Unlike Ken Ham.
that's the glasses you're wearing. And people have those worldviews. They have a way of thinking about reality that colors what we see. And of course, and I realize evolutionists will say, oh no, we're wearing the right glasses, you're wearing the wrong glasses. We'll have to debate that. But my point is we all have mental glasses. We all have a worldview which consists of our
He's giving me a subtle bit of Matt Powell level of arrogance. It's kind of impressive.
presuppositions.
Like, I don't hate him, but man, is he just spewing with the same bullshit. Which means I should stress again that I thought this was going to be something new, and so far you're saying nothing that I haven't heard 1,000 times before.
Presuppositions are your most basic beliefs about reality, and all your presuppositions together form your worldview. You do have very basic beliefs about reality. They're not just any old assumption. There are a lot of the things we assume on a daily basis. You'd be surprised if you just stopped and think about it. What are things that I...
Yeah, like people are rational, and then I'm constantly disappointed by how many of them are religious as fuck. I made the comment before about several high school friends who I wouldn't expect to have been religious at all, and they're all about that life. I don't understand it.
assume that I don't really know. But presuppositions are your most basic beliefs about reality, things that you would not give up easily. Your own existence, for example, or the reliability of your senses. That's something that you assume before you investigate the evidence. You assume that your eyes and your ears and your fingers and so on are reliable, that they're informing you about the actual universe. It probably...
Wow, are you about to go into solipsism? Because this feels like a segue into solipsism. And this idea that, what is it with, you know, it's just like, that's kind of a sign of a self-awareness of abject insanity, is to begin questioning your interface with reality. Think, is this right? Is what I feel correct? You know, it's just like, dude, you're thinking way too hard about absolutely nothing, to the point where you're frying your own brain. And just, you kind of have to live in a psychological state where you trust your senses. You don't really have a choice in the matter. That's why schizophrenia really sucks for people who suffer from it, because that stuff is just as real as reality. And I hate that for them. Not being able to tell what's real and what's not. Damn, that sucks. But what was I trying to say? What was I going to say? Yeah, this doesn't go where you people think it does. It just makes you look really, really disturbed on top of everything else. This idea that, well, you can't know that your senses are right. It's like, no, that's a solipsistic problem. But we all seem to agree when I point to my computer, yes, that's a computer. Yes, that's, medicine. Yes, that's soda. Yes, that's a box fan. Yes, those are plants. And I'm pointing around my room at stuff. Yes, that's a mess that needs to be cleaned up, but I'm lazy. Yeah, I think we can all agree. That looks like a spill. Let me touch it. Yep, it feels wet, which, by the way, we can't actually feel the wetness of something. We infer from the texture and whether it's and its coldness or the temperature difference that it is likely a liquid, hence why a liquid that's right at your skin temperature you really won't feel. Really odd sensations you get from that. I think we have to trust our senses, man. That's all we really can do. But, given the kinds of stuff y'all think, it makes sense that you would distrust senses.
It doesn't occur to you that you might actually be a brain in a jar, and all this is just an illusion.
Fuck, man. I didn't expect him to actually go to solipsism. I was saying it half jokingly, but there he fucking is. Have I been doing this too much? Have I been watching too many of these videos? Am I just that good now? Do I need to pick a different game? Coming up next, Yamato talks about flat Earth. I do not want to debunk flat Earthers. I just.
Illusion that's being fed, by electrical impulses, like in the Matrix or something. That probably doesn't occur to you. That's a
I'm real. I've grown to the point where I fucking hate the Matrix. I'm fucking sick and tired of it. I'm sick and tired of people referencing, and I'm sick and tired of people building it as theming it as their personality. I was bored with it when it was new. Came out on VHS. I'm like, okay, this was a cool movie. I remember it being cool in the theater, but I mean, this isn't that great. I'm so fucking done with it. And it's especially with the solipsistic bullshit to where it gave people a perfect analogy to constantly plop in. And yet, oddly enough, Mr. Creationist, you will notice that the simulation that was created in the Matrix is, as far as anyone can tell from the way the real world is depicted in the films, to be perfectly like the real world for anyone who doesn't have root privileges. Funny how that works.
supposition your senses are reliable, that your memory is basically reliable. Presumably, you think that the events you remember actually happened. Now, how do you know that? How do you know your memory is basically reliable? Now, you might say, well, Dr. Lyle, I took a memory test 2 weeks ago. I did really well and I got an A on it. I'm going to say, how do you know you took a memory test 2 weeks ago? Well, I remember taking, oh, yeah. You'd have to assume that your memory.
Or there would, be records of it that can be found. And you would look at them and both agree, the memory test, yes, you performed well on it. Yes, we can both agree that you took a memory test on June 12th.
Memory is reliable in order to argue that you correctly remember that your memory.
And no, memories are actually pretty goddamn shitty. And one of the things that pisses me off more than anything, and it's especially prominent with fucking boomers and the like, is I remember it, I know. And it's like, no, you're very much wrong. Especially when what they're describing, they put in the wrong names of people or pets. It's like you can't even get the name right. I think that kind of shows a bit of a problem here. And maybe you should step back a minute and think about this. I know what I saw. No, you don't. You know what you think you saw. Human memory sucks. Our brains fill in missing information all the time. Famous example. As a matter of research, people were, not long after 9/11, they wrote down what they remembered of the event of the day. Then, like 5 years later, were asked to recall the day again. And what they wrote 5 years later was different from what had happened at the time. You could see where their memories had twisted, had gotten mixed in. I think in some cases, people who were friends, who were like in like the same classroom and stuff, they mixed up each other's stories. Crazy stuff like that. That's perfectly normal for the human brain because it's a very, very flawed data retention system.
Is reliable. That's the nature of a presupposition. Laws of logic are presuppositions. You know about law, even if you have never recited a law of logic, you know about them and you use them on a daily basis, like the law of non-contradiction, which says you can't have A and not A at the same time in the same relationship.
Yes, you can't have a God that's all-powerful but also can't do things, like just automatically forgive people. How does that work?
If I said my car's in the parking lot and it's not in the parking lot, you wouldn't rush out to see a car that's there and not there. You would assume that I'm mistaken. That's a law of logic. Now, can you prove that there are laws of logic? I think you can, but not without using them. because we use laws of logic to prove everything, right? That's what we use to prove stuff. So,
Well, based on how you define parking lot, how you define car, and I hate to play the definition bro game, but and where I'm going with this isn't where you think I'm going. We, have these things declared a certain way, and there could actually be disagreement on what's what. But even more so, the fact that the car is a physical object and can only be in one space at a time, space time being related, um, it has to be in one or the other. This isn't Schrodinger's cat. It can't be both. It's just not how reality works. So we know that to be a state that is impossible because reality uh, dictates that such a state is impossible. Hence why we have the logical law of this non-contradiction or whatever it was, because we know that such a condition would be contradictory to the very nature of reality. So it's an extrapolation of basic physics more than anything. And the law exists only within one's mind because we agree on defining this understood concept that our brains thankfully can put two and two together and come up with four, kind of like object permanence. One step ahead that, and agree on.
laws of logic are presuppositions because you have to presuppose them in order to even get started, in order to even make an argument. We all have these presuppositions that we take with us when we evaluate the evidence. People are taught often that science is supposed to be very objective and neutral. And I'll grant that we shouldn't make a lot of unnecessary assumptions, but there are certain presuppositions you have to make to do science. You have to do that. When you come along, there's a rock on the side of the road, I'm going to be objective and scientific. I'm not going to make any assumptions. I'm going to do some science and find out what the rock's made of, being rigorously objective, making no assumptions. Well, you've already made assumptions. You've assumed the rock is there because you see it. You've assumed that your senses are reliable.
There we go. Just outright claiming that everything is a fucking lie. But of course, they do this to weaken the objection to their presuppositions by naturally doing a tu quoque that we have presuppositions. When it's not the fact that there's a presupposition there that's the issue, it's the fact that your presupposition is that the claim is true. The circular logic of using the Bible to prove the Bible. Why can't y'all see that? Oh, wait, I forgot. You're actively dishonest.
You've made all kinds of assumptions there. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. My point is we just need to be aware of the presuppositions that we have and see if they comport with other presuppositions. Some people say, not me, I don't have beliefs about how evidence should be interpreted. I think evidence should be interpreted neutrally. And I'm going to say, well, that's a very interesting belief about how to interpret evidence, right? The belief that we should interpret evidence with no beliefs is itself a belief about how to interpret evidence.
Holy fuck, we've gone into Carl Baugh grade word salad here.
It's just a ridiculous one because it's self-refuting. So these are presuppositions.
Hey, y'all can see the mouse cursor, right? Here's the point, swinging in from the right. Right over his head.
All your presuppositions together form your worldview. And so I'm going to use those terms interchangeably. Now the kicker is creationists and evolutionists have different worldviews. We have different ways of interpreting the evidence because we have different presuppositions.
Yes, and yours is to lie and start with the conclusion and try to make all the evidence fit your conclusion, whereas the rest of us all look at what the evidence actually fucking says. And you're just butthurt that it happens to exclude your Magic Sky Daddy and Carpenter and Sacrificial Carpenter expansion pack.
And so even before we come to the evidence, we've already got this worldview. We think we know how the world works, and that tells us what to make of the evidence that we see. And because we have different worldviews, different sets of presuppositions, we can look at exactly the same fossil and draw very different conclusions about what it means. You'll find also that presuppositions are hierarchical. Some are more basic than others. I might be able to get you to trade in one of your less important presuppositions to protect a more basic one. And we'll see some examples of that as we go on. But your presuppositions will ultimately go down to an ultimate standard that you won't give up. And for the creationists, that should be the Bible. The Bible should be, really, it should be our ultimate standard for everything, right? I mean, if this really is truth from God. It would be ridiculous to change this in for guesswork. Why not start with something that we know is absolutely true?
Have you proven it to be true? No, you haven't. But please continue to show your circular reasoning that is the root problem with the presuppositional nature that you clowns have chosen.
Written by the God of truth. I'm not saying all creationists do have the Bible as their ultimate standard. I'm just saying they should. It really should be our ultimate standard. For the
Why?
evolutionist, what is his or her ultimate standard? Well, it's not going to be the
Reality.
Bible. You wouldn't, if the Bible is your ultimate standard, you're not going to believe in evolution, ultimately. Usually it's either naturalism or strict empiricism. There's different, there's out there and they have different beliefs, but usually one of those two is the ultimate standard. Naturalism is the belief that nature's all there is.
Also, I had to look it up and double check myself. He was talking about the God of Truth earlier. In Tyria, the goddess of truth is Spear Marshal Cormier. My cat.
And so if God exists, he's part of nature rather than transcendent to it. And so everything has to be explained naturally, no miracles, things like that. Or strict empiricism, which...
Yeah, I don't know why in the world that would possibly be seen as something bad. Let's go with the explanations that match what we actually see in the universe and require no violations of the very nature of reality.
is the belief that all truth claims should be answered by the scientific method, by observation and experimentation. Now, I think many truth claims can be answered that way, but not all of them, so I'm not a strict empiricist. There are certain things that can't be demonstrated scientifically, like laws of logic, for example. Now, the way most people argue is they just throw facts at each other, but they don't realize because we have a different ultimate standard, we're going to interpret those same facts differently. Now, I do have other standards besides the Bible, but the Bible's my ultimate standard.
Like the Cubit standard.
Because it's unquestionable, you see. I do believe my senses are basically reliable. But that's not my ultimate standard because I know my senses can be fooled. Have you ever seen like a beam of wood put in water at an angle and it looks like the wood bends when it goes under the water because of the way the light refracts? Now, here I have my eyes telling me that wood bends when it goes under the water, and yet I don't believe that.
Yes, because our brains can process, can understand, especially upon independent investigation, going down and feeling, the wood didn't bend. Hey, my arm looks bent. That's weird. It's not bent. Oh, it came out fine. You watch babies do this stuff sometimes, just figuring things out. I've seen one of the kittens, which would have been the sister to my recently deceased cat Gembu and Kiki. And I've got video of this archived somewhere. I was testing out a thrift found little black and white TV, like a little portable TV thing, really cool. And I had it in the living room and was playing Super Mario Brothers on it. And the kitten, when I throw the fireballs in World 1-2, she would look for them to come off the screen. Like she expected them to go flying to the right. She was confused, but eventually figured out the balls weren't going to come out. Because her brain processed and was like, they aren't real. Something's stopping them. Stick your hand in the water, you'd very quickly realize, yep, it's definitely not bending. It must just be the way it looks. Because you can abstract those, because our brains can process that kind of higher logic. And especially at a point when you realize, or you learn of the concept of refraction, suddenly you have an explanation for what you've already observed. It doesn't matter that the child can't explain it. They know that the water isn't actually bending the object, that it is just something to do with how it looks. So I don't know where you're going with this, bro.
Because for one thing, I could put my hand under there and all my hand says it's still straight.
Oh my God, why don't I just let the clown talk before cutting him off every time? It just goes exactly where I'm going to go.
So now what do? I got one sense telling me it bends. I got another sense telling me it doesn't bend. How do I resolve that conflict? Well, I have a greater presupposition that solid things remain solid underwater and so on. My greater presupposition...
Oh, no, man. You put those water-soluble powders in water and they don't seem to say solid anymore.
Presuppositions tell me how to modify my lesser ones, you see. And so we all have presuppositions and we all have an ultimate standard. But most people try to use evidence to settle the origins debate. But the problem is the origins debate is a worldview debate. And you cannot resolve a worldview debate merely by appealing to evidence. Now, I'm not suggesting it's wrong to bring out evidence, and we'll do a lot of that tomorrow. I think that's useful. But my point is it's not decisive. And I have a silly illustration I like to use to demonstrate this. There was a man who thought that he was dead. He thought that he himself was dead. It's kind of
As Tyler says, so you're saying Dr. Lyle is dumber than your kitten? Apparently so. I miss those cats too. They got adopted out though, so that's a plus.
a strange problem. I've learned that
Honestly, they'd be like 11 years old now. They'd be old.
this is actually a psychological condition that occurs in folks where they think they're dead, amazingly. And his doctor's trying to convince him, look, fella, you're perfectly healthy. You can walk and talk. And the guy says, yeah, but, muscle spasms, even after clinical death, that could explain my ability to walk and talk. And the doctor says, but look, I've got medical charts showing you're perfectly healthy. I did a complete workup on you just last week. You're perfectly healthy. And the guy says, yeah, but that might not even be my chart. Maybe the names got swapped, and who knows if you're interpreting that right anyway. And the doctor says, okay, I'm going to prove to you that you are not dead. Do dead men bleed? And the guy thinks about it for a second. Well, the circulatory system would be, no, dead men don't bleed. And the doctor very quickly takes a little pin, pricks the guy in the hand. Sure enough, a little blood comes to the surface. See, you're bleeding. To which the man responds, well, how about that? I guess dead men do bleed. Right?
Yes, and if true, that is a very weird, very isolated situation that is an abnormality from, well, the norm. That would be a strange situation. That doesn't automatically mean anything that you think it does. All it means is, hey, somebody had a really weird thought process at that point. Whoopity-doo.
Silly example, but makes the point. Did the doctor have evidence that the guy was not dead? Absolutely, and there was nothing wrong with the evidence he presented. The guy could walk and talk, medical charts, the guy could bleed. Those are great lines of evidence. Did they persuade the man? No, because he had a presupposition that told him how to interpret the evidence.
Yeah, and that presupposition is going to be caused by a mental disorder. The person was not in the most proper state of mind.
In each case, he was able to come up with a rescuing device to explain away that evidence in light of his worldview. You say, well, Dr. Lau, that's ridiculous. That would never happen in reality, would it? Yeah, it does. And if there's one thing that decades in ministry has convinced me of, this is exactly how people think. It absolutely is.
Yep, every single religious person out there goes by this exact thing. It's always a reversal. Every single accusation is an admission.
Because you can present all kinds of evidence for God. The Bible tells us the evidence for God is obvious. God's hardwired us to recognize creation as that, a creation of God. And yet people suppress that truth in unrighteousness because they do not want to face a God who is rightly angry at them for their sins. And they will come up with rescuing device after rescuing device after rescuing device to explain away any evidence that you present to them. That doesn't mean it's wrong to present evidence, but just don't expect the person to immediately convert because they have a worldview, and so do you. It's just my worldview happens to be right. That's the difference, you see, in so much as it's biblical. And so I'm looking at the evidence properly through the lens of Scripture, this corrective lens that gives me the correct view of history. And I look at something like fossils and I see, yes, of course, there's fossils. There was a worldwide flood. I'd expect to find fossils all over the planet. Fossils of aquatic organisms on the land.
Hey, remember 20 minutes ago you told us this would be stuff you never heard? This would all be something new? And it's not.
On the highest mountaintops, Mount Everest has aquatic fossils at the top. I'd expect that. Of course, evidence that the Bible's true. My secular colleague looks at that very same fossil and says, that's not how I see it. Here's how I think the fossils formed. I think they formed gradually over 100.
Yeah, that's what the GPT summary said, that he just immediately went into creationist bullshit.
Millions of years. And they actually prove the world's very, very old. And you say, well, yeah, I guess you can look at it that way. So we think, well, yeah, maybe that's not such the best evidence then. Maybe we need more evidence. And so we say, but look how canyons can form quickly. Mount St. Helens demonstrated that. Cut out a canyon 1/40th the scale of the Grand Canyon in a matter of hours. He says, yeah, but just because that canyon formed.
It really didn't. Mount St. Helens kind of moved I'm going to be very scientific here, a metric fuck ton of matter from the mountain on north through the Tuttle River and the like. So, mountain mass volcanically blasted out laterally becomes, holy fuck, an area that looks like it just had freaking Castle Bravo go off on it. That is not a canyon. Ground levels rose. Flooding did some extra erosion, especially through this soft, fresh deposited material. But at most, you carved a little bit towards what would have been what's left of the original ground layer. Because it was only so much water from rivers backing up, ice melting, and the like. Mount St. Helens is not what you creationists think it is. Also, audience, you have no idea how badly I want to go visit that site. I desperately want to. Let's start a crowdfund for Yamato to go to Mount St. Helens. That would be fucking awesome though, especially since I'd go to Washington State. Oh, it'd be nice. Pacific Northwest, I wouldn't want to leave. Anyway.
Quickly doesn't mean the Grand Canyon formed quickly. It took billions of years. Well, yeah, I guess, yeah, just because we know how one formed, it doesn't prove how they all formed. Yeah, okay. Well, we need more evidence, right? So look, rock layers can be deposited quickly. Mount St. Helens laid down all kinds of new sediment, some of which have solidified in rock. It says, yeah, but just...
No, they're not rock. They may be concreted to a degree, as in packed tight, but they're not rock, buddy. They're not rock.
Just because those ones do doesn't mean these ones do, right? He's got his rescuing device there. But look, animals, they reproduce according to their kind. Kangaroos beget kangaroos, exactly what the Bible says. He says, sure, but given enough time, one kind will eventually change into another.
No one will say that because kind is not a scientific term. You will have speciation events. Those happen.
Haven't been around long enough to see it. But look, there's information in DNA. Information never comes about by chance. Well, there's some undiscovered process.
There is no information in DNA. It's chemistry. It's just straight up chemical processes. Also, I just now realized every time he does this, his slides are changing ever so slightly. Now I kind of want to see what he had for Mount St. Helens. Okay, just a canyon. Okay. Fuck it.
Yes, give us time, we'll find it. But look, there's things out in space, like comets, that can't last millions of years. He says, no problem, there's an Oort cloud that makes new ones. You see the problem here?
Okay, so the current plan is anyone who's on the East Coast and wants to start Mount St. Helens Doom Trip 2026-2027, you guys will come to Memphis and pick me up. We'll go down to Texas and pick up Laura, and then we'll head all the way to the Pacific Northwest, straight cross country. Vlog the whole damn thing.
Now, I'm not suggesting that it's wrong to show people evidence. In fact, I think we should do some of this. Because in our culture, people have been so inundated with the evolutionary way of thinking that they don't even realize there is another way to look at the evidence.
And yeah, that's the key thing, Chris. You're looking at it and you're getting righteously pissed off because he actually has a proper education on stuff, and instead of actually doing real science, he goes for the grift. Because that's more lucrative. You can't tell me every last one of these people isn't in it for the money. They may think they're doing good, but you know they're in it for the money because none of these people are living like Gandhi, you know?
And so there is value in presenting science and showing people how the Bible makes sense of it. And that's what we'll do tomorrow. Okay? But my point is, if you only do that, you haven't really made an argument for pointing out you can look at it this way. But that doesn't mean you must, does it? You haven't really made an argument for the Bible. If you just present evidence and show that the Bible makes sense of it, and if you're up against someone who is tenacious and philosophically astute, he'll be able to come up with a rescuing device for every line of evidence you can come up with. If you're up against somebody clever, he'll come up with a rescuing device. That's what it comes down to. So, it's good to show people evidence. Yes, you should do that. And how the Bible makes sense of it. Yes, you should do that. People need to be exposed to the Christian way of thinking. We should do that. But this by itself will not resolve a debate over worldviews because a person's worldview tells him how to interpret that evidence. Every piece of evidence you present, if the person's clever, he'll find a way of accounting for that in his worldview, perhaps by coming up with a rescuing device.
Rescuing device, always coming conspiracy. Tyler points out, how is it a PhD holder can't do better than Kent Hovind and Ken Ham reasoning? Because this is all creationists truly have. And I know we all know this, but it needs to be said that all creationists have is a very refined script of particularly simple statements that to the average person will sound logically sound, but in reality are so twisted, so omissive of the facts, so glancing over the details of such incredibly complicated processes and concepts like genetics, like astronomy, like radioactivity, all these facets of science, that the average person who doesn't think they need to know anything about these things, doesn't care to know anything about these things, will just take it at face value because these guys are doing it for the Lord. They're the good guys. It's just evolutionists. They're the bad guys because they don't want to work and they don't want to use their brains. So the easiest thing is to come up with stuff that appeals to the plebs in the audience and makes them seem smart for understanding this stuff. Because if I start talking about alpha and beta particles to the average person, their guys are going to glaze over and they're just going to be like, But, tell them something they understand and they're fine. That's all it is. We all know that, but it has to be said. It's a particularly refined placation to the average idiot. And the more they constantly hear this stuff, reassuring them, because they don't want to be challenged with new information, they want to be reassured in what they think, this makes them feel better. Pick up away in St. Paul. Okay, we'll have to take a detour one way or the other. I have to head up the country, down the country, left the country, right the country. Let's see. I mean, we could take a detour to Chicago and Milwaukee before we pick you up. That'd work. Should do that, but won't.
See, not all truth claims are answered in the same way. I think one of the reasons we struggle with this is we tend to spend most of our time with people that have the same worldview that we have. Isn't that true? And so if you and I have a disagreement about whether or not there are crackers in the cupboard, we can settle that by going open to the cupboard, opening up, see there are crackers there. And because we have the same worldview, we agree our senses are reliable and so on, we come to agree.
Hey, language. We don't use those kinds of words.
Yes, I was right. There are indeed crackers in the cupboard.
Whoa, get them out of there. They're people too. Sorry, I have to.
But if I'm arguing with somebody who has a different worldview, situation's changed. If I'm arguing with a Hindu who believes that this is all illusion, the world is Maya, illusion, and that we have a disagreement about whether or not there are crackers in the cupboard, and I show him the crackers, is he going to be convinced? Not necessarily, because in his worldview, that's illusion too, because there's no distinctions in the Hindu worldview, okay? So you see, if you're dealing with somebody who has a different worldview, you can't just throw evidence back and forth, because we'll each interpret the evidence according to our respective worldviews. So somehow, I need to argue that my presuppositions, biblical.
I have to note that this is clearly old people, like old adults in the audience. You got more bald heads than I can count. Yes, I can only count to 4. And we've got Kent Hovind wannabe child educator levels of slides here. It's like these people should be insulted by this.
Presuppositions are the correct way of looking at the evidence, and that my secular colleagues' way of looking at it is wrong. How do we do that? Well, before I give you the right answer, I want to give you the wrong answer, because a lot of times it's very tempting, especially for the secularists, to say, well, there have to be some presuppositions that are kind of in between, that are neutral ground, and we'll meet kind of there in the middle. And we'll give up the things that we don't agree on. And one thing he says, I certainly don't agree the Bible is the Word of God. So you got to give that up and leave that out of the conversation.
Yeah. Then you're left with facts. Get to it, fuck boy.
And that just sounds so reasonable to people because they think we should be neutral. But there's a problem with neutral ground. And the problem with neutral ground is that there's no such thing as...
It takes away our life preserver, our pacifier of the Bible. If we don't have the Bible, we can't do anything.
neutral ground. That's the problem. It doesn't exist. And the Bible says as much. Jesus said, he who is not with me is what? Neutral? No, he says, he who is not with me is against me. He who does not gather with me scatters.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
Isn't that interesting?
Which, yes, I love the fact that very statement is an absolute.
So if you're not with God, you're actually against him. You're his friend or his enemy. The Bible says in Romans 8:7, because the mindset on flesh is what? Neutral toward God? Unbelievers like to think that they're neutral toward God. Atheists like to say that. Oh, I'm very neutral. I just haven't been persuaded that God exists. No, the Bible says you're
No, I find the idea absolutely fucking idiotic. Get over it.
actively hostile to God. Your thinking is hostile to him because he's made creation so abundantly obvious that you should all believe it. Everyone should believe it. But the mindset on the flesh does not subject itself to the law of God. It's not even able to do so. Unbelievers are not even able to be neutral.
Oh, there's that guy. I knew there was a fourth guy. So there are 4 bald people. He was just being blocked by the dude who actually has hair. He had to rub his head real quick.
The very thing they claim to be. James 4:4, you adulteresses, do you not know that friendship with the world is what? Neutrality toward God? It's hostility toward God. Whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God.
And yeah, there we go. I'm neither friend nor enemy since he does not do the real. Oh, I love the Sir Sick style of talking. It's great. Oh. Maybe we'll get an opportunity for me to do my Palpatine voice since that everyone seems to have loved that. Read James 4:4. Does not have the same ring to it though as Execute Order 66. I'm on the wrong window.
The biblical picture is you're God's friend or you're his enemy. You're with him or you're against him. You're gathering or you're scattering. There is no neutral when it comes to an ultimate faith commitment. And
okay, sounds like he's a petty little bitch that doesn't like that we don't want to be his friend. If he fucking exists at all, which he doesn't.
very attempt to be neutral, therefore, is unbiblical. We're going to call it the pretended neutrality fallacy, as the way Dr. Bonson liked to put it, my mentor on this topic. Since the Bible indicates that there is no neutral, right? That's what the Bible says. We read the verses. The very claim of neutrality is unbiblical, isn't it? And so when somebody says, oh no, there's neutral and I am neutral, that person has effectively said the Bible is wrong, in which case they are not being neutral. Isn't that interesting? The belief in neutrality is a non-neutral belief because it's anti-biblical.
Oh man, yeah. Just reading Regis quotes. Regis Philbin here. Who wants to be a millionaire? No, reading Jesus quotes as Palpatine.
Biblical. And by the way, you will have to explain it to somebody at some point. So make sure you
Turn the other cheek, young apprentice. I don't know if he even said the turn the other cheek thing. It was Jesus or if it was just another thing, but still.
get that. Because people think they're neutral. They really do. And they want you to be neutral. But the fact is there's no such thing. The attempt to be neutral is anti-God because God says there's no such thing. So neutral ground is not really neutral. And if you agree to those terms, you say, yeah, we can leave the Bible out of the discussion because you don't agree, you don't agree with it. I guess I can't use something you don't agree with. And we step onto what we think is neutral ground. Neutral ground is really secular ground. And at that point, you've lost. Because isn't the debate really about whether or not this is true? Isn't that what it's really about, ultimately? Whether or not the Bible's true. And if you start the debate by saying, well, the Bible's not true about neutrality, you started your debate for the truth of the Bible by saying the Bible's not true. That is not a good way to start a debate, by immediately conceding defeat, right? That is not logical. Secularists like to think they're very neutral and objective, and they're going to want you to be neutral and objective. Two things to remember.
It seems you've gone from trying to provide the ultimate proof of creation that was supposed to be stuff we never heard before to just whining about the fact that you morons suck at debate and can't win because all you do is make shit up.
When people ask you to be neutral, one, they're not. Two, you shouldn't be. Okay? Nobody's neutral, and you're not supposed to be. You're supposed to be Christians. You're not supposed to be neutral. Nobody can approach scientific evidence without presupposition.
Also, these are misconceptions of how debate interactions actually go. And what they're interpreting as being neutral is us asking for actual fucking evidence that isn't the claim itself.
You can't escape that. And you shouldn't try. So the man of God, according to Titus 1:9, is to hold fast the faithful word, which is in accordance with the teaching, so that he will be able both to exhort in sound doctrine and to refute those who contradict. Yes, we do stand on the word of God, even when we're refuting people who deny the word of God.
Oh, I'm afraid the dog's opinion on God will still be very neutral when your friends arrive.
I say, well, I don't believe the word of God. And I say, well, that's your problem, right? You should. You should believe the Bible. If you don't, that's your mistake. I'm not going to make it my mistake. Just because you're being irrational doesn't mean
You are a mistake.
I should be irrational. If somebody didn't believe in the existence of air, would you hold your breath? That's their problem, right? People say,
Hey, it's funny you bring that up because the people who wrote your Bronze Age fables didn't fully understand air being particulate matter.
but wait, you can't stand on the Bible while you're defending it. That's circular reasoning. Meanwhile, they're standing on evolution while defending that. There's nothing illogical about standing.
No, the evolutionist, to use your term, worldview, the concepts being ascribed, the philosophies being ascribed, are an emergent property of the way reality actually is, leading to a conclusion that you want to lump sum as evolutionism. Because everything has to be an us versus them, everything has to be a religion, everything has to be dogmatic, because that's the only way you can think of it. It is not in any way, shape, or form the same thing.
Standing on the thing you're defending. I'm not just saying the Bible's true because it's true. That's not my argument. That would be vicious circular and that would be silly.
That literally is your argument.
But nonetheless, I'm not going to abandon the Bible for the sake of somebody who doesn't believe in it. That's his problem. And so in battle, you can stand on a hill while you're defending the hill, right? That's the best place to be. Have you ever had something in your eye? You can go to a mirror and use your eye to examine your eye and correct your eye. There's nothing illogical about that. And there's nothing illogical about standing on God's word while you're defending it. If it really is the ultimate standard, you have to. Because there's nothing greater upon which you could stand, you see. So, how do we get anywhere then? How do I show
Do we execute Order 66? That'll get us somewhere.
that my biblical presuppositions are the right ones? So we can't just throw evidence back and forth because we'll each interpret the evidence in light of our respective worldviews, right? We can't just meet on neutral ground because there's no such thing. So how do I demonstrate biblical presuppositions are correct? You know, presupposition.
Okay, I'm glad you're enjoying it, or at least the idea of it. No one's enjoying this video. This video is terrible, but at least I'm covering something different. Yeah, Sunday I always try to do a proof for God, a proof for Christian, something, and most of the time I come up empty, especially since all you see anymore are YouTube shorts, and I ain't going through all that. So it was nice that I found something I could sink my teeth into, and thus waste my Sunday morning with.
Are kind of like,
Of course, is it really a waste if I get to hang out with all of you and entertain all of you to the degree I can? I don't know. I wouldn't say so. But I could be doing other things, but those other things wouldn't involve you lovely people. So, you're conflicted.
your kidneys.
But I guess that's a good problem to have.
You can't live without them. And they're constantly working and doing things. And yet most people are not aware of their own. Isn't that interesting? Just as most people are not aware of their own kidneys and the functioning of their kidneys, that they need to live, so most people are not aware of their own presuppositions, which they also need to live.
How are your kidneys a presupposition? What? Dude. What the hell are you on about? This is the thing with apologetics, that they have to go to these stretches of word salad constantly to try to make what they think seem reasonable. And the only way they can make what they think seem reasonable is to vilify actual logic, the actual, normalized process of understanding the world and what that eventually results in, opinion-wise. It amazes me that these people get away with this. But they're telling all these clods in the audience what they want to know, what they want to hear. It's funny, from a class of people who complain about kids being coddled these days, which, does happen. in a lot of cases. Um, but who complain about that as adults wanting to be coddled constantly because it's an uncomfortable truth that their magic sky daddy is obviously not does not exist. He's not doing a real, as Sir Sick would say.
Until something goes wrong. If you've ever had a kidney stone, you are suddenly abundantly aware of your kidneys. I've had one. They're not fun. And you're abundantly aware that something is horribly wrong. So what
Yeah, I need to figure out how to tag this video, honestly, to make probably try to get some traction off of it, because I feel like this is going to be a pretty good stream to try to push out there. Not saying I'm promoting videos yet. I don't got that kind of money, but it'd be a cool idea.
I want to do is show that secular presuppositions will not make knowledge possible. They're inconsistent with each other and with knowledge. Basically, I want to give the
That's going to get a Palpatine. This guy is one big suppository. Did you ever hear the tragedy of Jason Lyle? Funny. He was just a giant douche. Like Matt Powell, but less arrogant. I don't know, I kind of shifted from Palpatine into my own thing, but it was Palpatine-esque.
believer the intellectual equivalent of a kidney stone. Okay? It's going to be painful for him, but he's going to be better off in the long run because he's going to realize that those secular presuppositions don't work. Secular presuppositions do not make knowledge possible. And I know that's true because it's something the Bible tells us. Proverbs 1:7, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. You want to begin to know anything, it starts with a submission to God and therefore his presuppositions, biblical presuppositions.
Oh, yes, of course. Some book that has a bunch of magic woohoo in it says that the only way you can know anything is to believe magic book of woohoo. Hey, that's still circular, buddy. You haven't proven your Bible. You're just using the Bible to try to prove the Bible, which is circular as all get out. In fact, it's not even circular, it's a damn dot. Dot logic is what you guys have going on.
Positions. And there's a flip side of this proverb. You reject God's wisdom, you reject his presuppositions, you're a fool, the Bible says. You're reduced to foolishness.
Say it with me, everyone. Some book of magic bullshit says a person who doesn't believe book of magic bullshit is a fool. Film at 11.
You can't have knowledge, you can't have wisdom, because in Colossians 2:3, we find in Christ are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. Everything that is known or knowable is in the mind of God. Everything.
I will dub thee Doth Jesus.
And it's only by revelation from God that we know anything. And God's revealed himself in many different ways, but nonetheless, it's only because God exists, it's only because the Bible is true that we're able to know things. That, you see, is the ultimate proof of creation. And I'm going to flesh that out.
Really? That's the ultimate proof. That's where all of the past 30 minutes was leading.
A little bit. Because some of you might be thinking, but wait a minute, I have non-believing friends, non-Christian friends, and they do know some things. And that's true. But then again, they do know God. My argument is not that you must profess Christianity to have knowledge. My argument is that Christianity must be true in order for you to have...
Yeah, that's an ultimate non sequitur there, buddy.
knowledge. Is Christianity still true for the unbeliever? Yeah. He might deny it, but it's still true. And he knows God. Everybody does. Romans 1:18 through 19, right? The wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who, what, who just don't know any better? No, who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. That's interesting, because to suppress the truth, you would have to know in order to suppress it. That's interesting. Self-deception.
Yes, this book describing itself as the truth would of course talk about the suppression of such as suppressing the truth rather than not buying into garbage. I don't know how you people can't understand this.
Is a real phenomenon. The Bible talks about it. Those who go away, they look at God's word and they don't, their life is not changed. They're self-deluded, like a person looking in the mirror and going away and forgetting what he looks like. That's the analogy the Bible gives. It says they're self-deceived. Self-deceived. Weird. But true to human nature, fallen human nature. Because to be self-deceived, you'd have to know the truth and you'd have to convince yourself of a lie. It's very strange. But who said human beings were rational, right? In our fallen nature, we're not. Because what may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has shown it to them. God has made himself obvious. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made. Even his eternal power and Godhead.
Okay, for Grungvaldi and Al Trucker, since they asked, and it's been a bit since I filled in because they just got here, this is Jason Lyle. Ultimate Proof of Creation from 2019 from some random ass church in Indiana. This dude apparently has a degree, a PhD in astrophysics, but immediately upon receiving the PhD, switched to the creationist grift. He is pathetic. This video is pathetic. It's as boring as I expected it to be, but I'm powering through because why the hell not? It's Sunday. We're going to blaspheme like a motherfucker. Do or do not. There is no try.
So they're without excuse. So yes, unbelievers do know God, and they rely upon God's presuppositions, albeit inconsistently, and in a way that is not thankful to God or grateful to him. So you see my argument that the Bible must be true, and I'm not just arguing for creation, I'm really arguing for the Christian worldview, which begins with creation. My argument that the Bible must be true is that it alone can make sense of those things that are necessary for us to have knowledge.
There's all these stupid ass ideas I just came up with and pulled right out of my taint. Yeah, the Bible's how we prove them all. That's why I pulled these ideas out of my ass, because the only way we can prove them is the Bible. See, I create a situation where the only answer is going to be my magic book instead of actual fucking reality.
That's a different kind of an argument, so I'm going to flesh that out. But my point is, if the Bible were not true, you couldn't prove anything's true. Because in order for us to know that something is true, the universe would have to be a certain way. And my argument is the universe would have to be exactly the way the Bible says it is in order for us to have knowledge of things. That's a different kind of an argument, isn't it? Well, what are some things that we use to have knowledge? Well, let's consider. Laws of logic. You use laws of logic every day, even if you can't consciously recite one. You use the law of non-contradiction. You couldn't get up in the morning without using laws of logic. Ever woken up in the morning and you're in bed and you think, I think I'll get a shower? Do you ever stop and think, well, wait a minute, maybe I'm already in the shower?
No, because I'm not fucking crazy.
It just doesn't occur to you, right? Because you know if I'm here, I'm not there, and so on. You use logic. And so you have knowledge of something. You know I'm not there because you know I'm here, and so on. And so we use laws of logic to have knowledge of things. That's something that we use, and we need that to have knowledge about mathematical truths and certain.
Jason Lyle seems like Ken Ham and Darth Dawkins got together and had a bastard child.
Things like that. But laws of logic are based on the
Shit. People super chat. You give me a good enough super chat, I'll read anything in a Palpatine voice. It doesn't matter what it.
character of God. The reason we have laws of correct reasoning is because there is a mind that's sovereign over the universe, and that's the mind of God. Laws of logic don't change with time, do they? It's not like, well, contradictions can't be true on Fridays, but on Saturdays, all bets are off, right? Feel free to contradict yourself on a Saturday. It might be true. Well, that's ridiculous, right? We know laws of logic don't change with time. Why? Because God doesn't change with time, because he's beyond time. He made.
Chalk that one on your non sequitur list. If you were keeping count, that's like 500 non sequiturs. That's all these people fucking have. Doesn't follow. Unrelated with my ZZ plant, one of them has a new shoot spouting up, and it's doing pretty well. Nice.
Time, after all. He says, I, the Lord, do not change. Therefore, you sons of Jacob are not consumed, right? So laws of logic don't change with time. They don't change with space. Laws of logic work just as well on the moon as they do on the Earth or in the Andromeda Galaxy.
How would you know they work? Were you there?
Right? I mean, if I go into a room I've never been in before, am I worried that, boy, I hope laws of logic work in this room? Or I might be in trouble. I might be there and not there at the same time. When the astronauts landed on the moon, they had a lot of concerns, but one of them was not, boy, we hope laws of logic work on the moon. They assumed that. Why?
You know, honestly, I don't think any of them were all that concerned. Neil and Buzz, nah. Certainly not. This is a different caliber of person. Also, for those who don't know, Artemis 2, the complete SLS stack, has made it to pad 39B. So come February 6th, we are supposed to have a launch of 4 people to lunar orbit. I should be way more excited for this, but I'm so burnt out from society being such a shit show that I just can't muster up the same excitement that I would have 10 years ago. But man, this is awesome.
Because God's sovereign over the entire universe. And so if laws of logic work on earth, which they must because God's mind controls the earth, and they work everywhere else too. So you see the nature of laws of logic, the fact that there is a standard of right reasoning makes sense because that standard is the mind of God. God determines what right reasoning is. The fact that laws of logic don't change with time makes sense in light of the fact they're rooted in the nature of God.
All right. Let's make sure you motherfuckers understand that. Next time y'all bring up radioactive decay might have changed, speed of light might have changed, because they're also tied to logic. How are they tied to logic? I don't know. Everything's fucking tied to the laws of logic according with you people. That's your problem to figure it out because you established the standard. Figure it out.
Law of non-contradiction exists. Why? Because God doesn't deny himself. The Bible says as much. He cannot deny himself. And all truth is in God, therefore truth will never correct truth. It can't.
Laura with a good one. Very neurotypical of you to assume I haven't taken a shower today and forgotten about it. No. It's more just a matter of am I in the shower right now or not? Like, am I in the shower right now? I am very much sure I'm not. If I was, that would be a problem. Did I shower today? I don't believe I have. I could have, but let me check. Yeah, no. No, I haven't. And I haven't left the house, so of course I hadn't showered.
Because God's sovereign over all truth. So you see, laws of logic, which we all use.
Ah, yes. Ever grab your Bible to work out how to fix your car? No. Yep. Last I checked, Bibles didn't get us to the moon either.
Whether Christians or non-Christians, only makes sense in the Christian worldview. If it's just a chance universe, why would you have laws at all if there's no lawgiver? Who decides what they are? Why would they not change with time?
Laws are descriptive, not prescriptive. How much do we have to tell you idiots this before you get it?
Why would be? How could you possibly know that they're the same everywhere? You couldn't know that based on your own experience because you don't have universal experience. You've never been everywhere. In fact, cosmically speaking, your experiences are very limited.
Buzz Aldrin and Charlie Duke didn't think they'd have to convince people we'd been to the moon, but here we are. Yeah, very good points.
Most of you have not even left the planet, right? This is a small planet. So you see, all the assumptions that we make about laws of logic are predicated on...
Hey, you tell Jeff Bezos that I hate him least of all the billionaires I'm aware of, he might set me up on one of those New Shepard flights. That'd be cool.
The Christian worldview. You could not defend them apart from the Christian worldview. Uniformity in nature. Not to be confused with uniformitarianism, which is the idea that rates and conditions are constant. I don't believe that. There was a worldwide flood that changed lots of rates. But nonetheless...
There we go. Oh, I don't believe the flood changed. Yeah, how is a flood going to change radioactive decay rates? Please explain to me how that works. I'm waiting. How does it affect the rate of fusion of a stellar mass star? I'm waiting.
There are things in nature that there are patterns in nature that don't change arbitrarily with time because nature is upheld by the mind of God. The seasons, for example. God's promised us that the seasons will continue.
A nice reference to last week's stream, which was, like 2.5 hours. This guy might be even more boring than Matt Powell and his 3 buddies, whose names I never bothered to learn. Yeah, I didn't either.
Future as they have in the past. Genesis 8:22. There it is. The day and night cycle. And there are other cycles in nature that...
Hey, Matt Powell gets knighted as a Sith by Palpatine. You shall be known as Darth Peel. Yes. Banana.
I would argue that science is all about trying to discover the patterns that God has placed in nature, particularly the ones that don't change with time. Science is about this, because God allows some things to change, but then other cycles he doesn't allow to change. And science is about distinguishing those two. That's really what it's all about. So uniformity of nature is what makes science possible. But why would you assume that there would be any uniformity of nature in a chance universe? Why? It's a chance universe.
It's not assumed. It's clearly evident from every single thing we experience. Full stop. Reality is incredibly consistent. Physics is incredibly consistent. That's how this stuff is, man. It just is. Like brute fact. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to say? This is insanity. This is outright fucking insanity. I'm not even being hyperbolic here. This kind of thinking is absolutely fucking crazy.
Anything can happen.
This is the way these people have to go. This is the direction these people have to go to defend their fucking Bible. It's insane.
Have you ever gone to start your car and it doesn't start? I had that happen once. It was unpleasant. It's not
Wow. Once. Oh, poor Jason Weil. His car wouldn't start. Boo hoo. You don't want to call a tow truck? Do it.
fun, right? Now, but here's the thing though. I didn't say, well, I guess the laws of chemistry and physics don't work anymore. That didn't even occur to me. I assumed that conditions had changed, that maybe the battery's dead or there's a bad solenoid in the starter or whatever, right? If the result is different, you would automatically assume that conditions have changed. It wouldn't occur to you to think, well, I guess laws of physics and chemistry don't work anymore. Frankly, I'm surprised there are laws at all in a chance universe, right? See, it doesn't even occur to us to think that way because God's hardwired us theistically to understand that he exists and that he upholds the universe in a consistent way. Babies are born knowing about uniformity. They burn their hand on the candle. They don't touch the candle again because they
Yeah, they understand cause and effect.
assume it will hurt again. How do they learn that?
I don't know, probably by touching the flame and it being like, oh shit, this doesn't feel good. I ain't doing that again. What the fuck, man? What the fuck?
God put that information right in them.
Oh, yeah, of course, that's it. No. It can't be yet another element of the emergent property that has existed in creatures for all of fucking history to react to outside stimulus and, of course, react in a defensive way against stimulus that causes harm. No, that can't be it at all.
From conception.
Because, it's totally evolutionarily beneficial to just burn yourself all the time. Right? We all want to be fucking Fire Marshal Bill, man.
You all assume that. When you get in the middle of the night to get a drink of water and it's dark and you're fumbling around, have you ever stubbed your toe on something? Now the next night when you get up to get a drink of water, you're very careful not to
Oh, I know there's a few people out there who are going to get that reference I just dropped, but I don't know how many.
stub your toe again, right? Because you assume it will hurt again. But in a chance universe, how could you know that? In a chance universe, anything can happen. Maybe the next time I stub my toe, it'll be the most enjoyable experience of my life, right? It's chance universe.
In which case, you just had a sexual awakening. Don't worry, you can pay women to give you the treatment. Some are really good at it. Hell, some will do it for free if your kink is heartache. Wasn't mine, though. For 59 Norwegian kroner as Palpatine. let me get this right. I gotta give you your money's worth here. I don't know how many shekels that is, but it's shekels nonetheless, and I appreciate them. What am I charged with? Eating a meal? A succulent Chinese meal? I don't know why I had to get angry at the end.
Anything can happen.
No, this is Democracy Manifest. There we go. Gave you a little bonus there.
Why would I assume uniformity in a chance universe? It makes no sense. It's based on the character of God as revealed in Scripture.
Yeah, this is a good one. I don't even think the Bible says 6,000 years because it's based on assumptions the patriarchs lived for over 500 years, and the begats list is like two different versions. Very true. Additionally, and this is something that really gets me, and Hovind has been big on this. If Joseph, it was effectively irrelevant to Jesus. Kent wants to stress Joseph wasn't his dad. Why in the goddamn hell then does the patriarch list to Joseph even fucking matter? It doesn't. It's irrelevant. But of course, you don't care about women, so you'd only have a patriarch list. But of course, there's two lists. Oh, let's use Hovind theory. The other one is for Mary, even though it clearly fucking isn't. But this is what happens when you just compile different editions of a story together. Like, that's the really funny thing, is when you look at it, And you look at Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and you realize this is, it's like, oh, this is just the same story. And it's like, no, 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 no. This is different versions of the same story. This is retellings of it and how it had mutated over many retellings, many generations, and intentional flourishing in some cases. It's really fascinating. Of course, I would care more if the story was any good, and it's not. It's terrible. So, yeah.
Morality. See, I think those two are kind of abstract. Most people haven't thought about laws of logic or what makes science possible, but people have thought about right and wrong. And people have very strong opinions on what's right and wrong. But the point is, how would right and wrong make sense in a chance universe? Because if we're just chemical accidents, what one chemical accident does to another chemical accident is morally irrelevant.
Morality is a construct of society. In the grand scheme of the cosmos, yeah, anything that goes on is absolutely fucking irrelevant, but it matters to us as sentient beings with consciousness. Consciousness being an emergent property of brains, of the nature of the mind, which is an emergent property of the brain itself. So it matters to us. You wishing to discredit that to try to tout up your God is disgusting.
Right? I mean, you don't scold your motor oil for doing what it does when you spill it. It just does.
The hell I don't. Have you ever seen me around a printer? Work is lucky that I have the self-control to not destroy every printer in that goddamn place. Every single one of them has pissed me off in one way or another, deserving of extinction. Extermination, I should say. Go all full Dalek on it. Exterminate. Bam. Fucking Office Space that shit. But you know what? I don't do it because I have self-control. Why do I have the self-control to not do it? Because that part of what helps is knowing that, hey, I'd get fired and I'd be responsible for buying like a $2,000 printer. But still, I yell at machines regularly. Why? Because it makes me feel better.
What it does, it's chemistry. If we're just chemical accidents, there is no morality. I mean, well, you should behave this way. Why? If I'm a chemical accident, why should I behave it? Well, because it benefits people. Why do I care what benefits people? They're just chemical accidents in your worldview, right? So I'm going to kind of zoom in on that one because I think that's one that is easiest to understand. If you're new to this way of thinking, that's the one to start with because we have thought about morality. But my
excellent. It was worth every Norwegian shekel. Very good.
point is, in a chance universe, morality makes no sense, let alone absolute morality. Why would it be the same for everybody? In the Christian worldview, I can explain that because we're all made in the image of God. And God has the same standard for all of us. He's revealed that in his word. And I have a very good reason to obey God's law because there are consequences if I don't. And frankly, out of gratitude for salvation. But you see my point. Absolute morality makes sense in the Christian worldview. All of these things do. These are the things that we use to have knowledge. We use laws of logic.
Tubian gets a free one. Get your hand off my penis. I forget the rest of the lines in there. I gotta get like a copy pasta ready for that and just randomly bring out Palpatine's succulent Chinese meal. That's gonna become a meme now.
Know things about if this, then that. These if-then statements, which are logical truths. Uniformity, by which we have knowledge of the universe. Morality, by which we have knowledge of right and wrong. In order for us to have knowledge of anything, the Bible would have to be true. Beginning with creation. Now, my point is...
I mean, this dude is just a total douche. Like, just straight up. Douche-tastic, man. Fucking Christ, bro, going on.
It's not that secularists don't believe in laws of logic or uniformity of nature, morality. My point is they do. And yet, on their professed worldview, they shouldn't. So when my atheist friend says, but Dr. Lyle, I believe in laws of logic, I would say, well, you shouldn't, because in your worldview, there's no basis for having laws at all, let alone laws of reasoning. And why do you assume they're the same everywhere and that they don't change with time? You haven't been everywhere, and you haven't seen the future.
Oh, yes. Let's bring up when he was talking about everything just being chemicals and you don't eat your motor oil. Sean here brings up Jesus told off a tree. Fig tree ain't producing figs out of season. I'm going to get mad at it. I'm the all-knowing God. I'm going to be pissed off at this tree doing exactly what it was created to do.
Right? How do you know that? On his worldview, he can't make sense of it. He assumes it because he's made in God's image, and he can't escape that. So
Work at a copy/printer company. Well, I just work retail, but every single printer in the place has totally pissed me off.
what you need to do then to expose the fact that these presuppositions that everybody has are Christian presuppositions, as you point out, they make no sense in a secular worldview. You do an internal critique. An internal critique is where you examine the worldview on
That's another thing. If God is so great, why does he pick the most boring or most shitty people to represent him?
its own terms to show that it self-destructs.
I mean, could y'all imagine me trying to promote God, be doing apologetics? Could you imagine it? With my awkward charisma, my manic delivery style, haphazardness, I feel like some of y'all would actually genuinely like it, except for the fact that I'm touting nonsense. But of course, I don't believe any of this garbage, so I'm most certainly not going to spew it out for everybody. I'm going to yawn a lot, though. Yawns are constant with me. Um, but I've almost thought about making a joke channel where I just do apologetic stuff, like ironically, and just seeing how much money I can milk, how popular I can get it just on a whim.
So on the surface, it might seem like, people just choose their worldview arbitrarily, like they pick colors of cars. You like blue, you like flame color, take your pick. You like the Bible, you like the secular worldview, whatever, right? Or whatever my parents held, or in some cases, the opposite of whatever my parents held, right? I just get to pick what I want. Well, except when you examine it carefully, the biblical worldview works. It can lead to knowledge. It can go somewhere. The secular worldview, when we examine it carefully, can't possibly work. It cannot lead to knowledge.
Surprisingly, no. Palpatine isn't too stressful on the throat. You know what does get my throat is any kind of singing. That'll immediately cause me to either start coughing or get more yawns. Like I got a yawn now coming on. Palpatine isn't so bad. Go for Papa Palpatine.
It would not make knowledge possible. So let me show you how to do this.
But let's be clear. This is my presentation voice. This is actually my voice, my normal, low, moderate speaking tone. This is how I actually naturally speak. Obviously, when talking with somebody, I'm going to project myself more and add more flow to everything. But the natural, basic voice, if I'm just thinking out loud, will be something like this. So it's a little easier for me to do the Palpatine voice. And I'm sure this voice is probably sexy to someone out there, but it's not a good presenting voice. You can hear it start to crack whenever I try to project a little further. Because I can go like this, and then there you go. It starts cracking into the normal mode. Oh shit, I tapped over a bit.
With a couple of real examples. Relativism. Relativism is the belief that all things are relative, there are no absolutes. And you'll hear people say, well, that's true for you, but it's not true for me, and so on. Relativists. Very easy to refute on its own terms, because you want to all you have to do to ask the relativist when he says all things are relative, there are no absolutes, is to say, are you absolutely certain? How's he going to answer that? If he says yes, he's refuted himself. If he says no, then he hasn't demonstrated anything, has he?
Thank you, and you are not the only person to tell me that. It's taken a lot for me to take a level of pride in my voice, but I do at this stage like it. I wish I was a little bit more eloquent, didn't stammer as much, but I know y'all aren't holding it against me, and it shows that literally shows that I'm human and that I'm not text to speech or anything. But additionally, gives what I do character, and you can tell I'm kind of thinking off the cuff. You can hear me think as I pause in these little moments to try to figure out how I want to cognate the ideas in my head, how I want to think about it, how I want to say what I'm thinking. I always have to come up with some crazy complex way of speaking. And it's like, how about I just say what I need to say? Tyler, what about absolute zero, absolute brightness? Yeah, seriously. It's like there are some absolutes. Wow, what an engine of garbage. They need a Mr. Fusion.
I'm winning that debate, aren't I? All I have to do is ask that question. Boom. The absurdity of his worldview is revealed in one question. Well, strict empiricism. A lot
And yeah, if you're not in my Discord, link is down in the video description. You may want to join. Laura posted their synopsis on dusty cabinets of her memory. So regarding something her mom had explained to her regarding Jesus's the chronology from Adam to Jebus. It's a nice little read. Not long, just a lot of small paragraphs that are a bit much to post in a text chat. Not that if you didn't break it up, Laura, you couldn't post it here. I'd totally, let you do it. But I don't know how easy it is for you to get all that copied over here and what have you.
of evolutionists are strict empiricists. They believe that all truth claims are proved by empirical observation. That is a common belief. That the way you know something is scientifically. If you can't demonstrate something scientifically by observation and experimentation, then you shouldn't believe it.
Perfectly working in with this comment here. All they've got are dumb little quips like, "Are you absolutely certain?" and "It's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve." Sorry, another yawn came in. Or the classic, "If we evolved from monkeys, why are there still monkeys?" I don't know. If you came from your parents and your parents came from your grandparents, why do you still probably have grandparents or parents?
And the problem with that is it's self-refuting. I'm going to ask him, how do you know the statement itself is true? Did you prove it by empirical observation? See,
And then this obsession with explicit empiricism and the like, just overburdening with it where it's not warranted in some concept discussions simply because they know their stuff meets none of the criteria whatsoever to be found as true. And so they want to play the Uno reverse card. Oh, well, you haven't done empiricism on everything, have you? You haven't made a star yourself, and if you did, that just prove you needed your intelligence to do it. It's like, that's not how this stuff works. But your deity, the deity you're claiming, is so clearly evident. It should be trivial to detect.
follow this here. The statement, all truth claims are proved by empirical observation, is itself a truth claim, one that has not been proved by empirical observation. Because nobody has observed all truth claims, right? In fact, you can't observe a truth claim, it's abstract. So you see, if the statement's true, you shouldn't believe it. It's self-refuting. And that is true for all non-biblical worldviews.
No.
All of them self-destruct on their own terms. You just have to push the unbeliever to be consistent with what he professes to believe, and it'll eventually circle back and self-destruct. All of them do that. We know that because the Bible says that God is what makes knowledge possible. All the treasures of wisdom and knowledge are deposited in Christ, not some, all. You give up Christ, you give up knowledge. So at first it may seem like we're on our two little islands isolated from each other, we can't get anywhere. But the problem is secular presuppositions do not make knowledge possible. They're sinking sand, is the way the Bible puts it. They will not support knowledge. And yet people need knowledge. You need it to survive. So what is the unbeliever to do? When that sand dissolves away, he's got a problem. He cannot stand on his own presuppositions and have knowledge. And so what's he going to do? He's going to do this. Unbelievers will stand on Christian ground, on Christian presuppositions, because they have to, if they're going to survive in God's universe.
Yes, and now the claim that they own reality, which is basically what this boils down to. All the constructs of reality, all the facts about the universe. They own it. This is so childish.
They got to do it God's way. So yes, non-Christians will believe in laws of logic and uniformity in nature, as if God is upholding the universe in a consistent way. They'll believe in absolute morality, as if there's a God who's...
Or that the universe is just simply consistent. And no, we don't believe in absolute morality at all. As I've said many times, I believe that morality is subjectively objective insofar as a social species, we all seem to have, for the most part, very similar ideas on what right and wrong are. And while there's plenty of aberrations, on a whole, we seem to agree to a point where it becomes kind of a de facto standard. When you go to another country, you presume you're unlikely for someone to just come up and shank you. It's not a zero chance by any means, but you don't go around thinking, wearing chainmail, thinking I am going to get stabbed. Because you know that's generally not what people are going to do, and it's going to be a specialized situation, an odd case where it would happen, as just one example of many. Remember, even people in North Korea lead relatively normal lives outside of the stuff that the regime controls. Normal lives is in the normal stuff humans do. Have friends, hang out, enjoy time, spend time with families, fall in love, have kids, work their jobs. It's all the same. Are those moral subjects? Not necessarily, but it shows what would be the normal condition that is still incredibly standard as being a Homo sapien. It's just how that works. Our morality is derived from the same evolutionary processes that are, there for those interactions that we have, and that adaptation as society goes. We're a little less apt to go in and just start waging war on one another. At least we're supposed to be. Money talks, though. Oligarchs rule everything. But, I don't just go to the apartment next door and lay siege to everything and just claim it as my own. I don't want to do that. Damn the consequences in civilization. Even if it was an option, I wouldn't want to do that. If someone told me, yeah, go ahead, I'd be like, no, I'm not doing that to somebody. So I don't know what the hell you people are on about.
Sovereign over everyone. They will believe in that laws of logic are absolute because God's mind is sovereign over all truth. And yet they'll deny the very God that makes those things meaningful. Isn't that interesting? They're compulsively stealing.
Isn't that interesting, the stuff I made up? Hey, lying's a sin, fuckface.
From the Christian worldview to support their own. They can't help themselves. They're presuppositional kleptomaniacs. They're constantly stealing from the Christian world.
He's really trying to pad out the hour, and at this stage, he is doing nothing but placating these people. Is it nice you stroking off their tiny egos, making them feel like they're the smart ones? God, you're pathetic.
Worldview. Now they're going to deny it. We pointed out, you're standing on God's ground. They say, no, it's not. Laws of logic, that's not a Christian presupposition. We all have laws of logic. And then I'm going to have to point out, but you can't account for them. You can't make sense of them on your own worldview. And ultimately, again, we can't change the person's heart. That's up to God. All we can do is point out the inconsistency. We can say, look, I hope you'll get saved. I really do. I'm praying for you. But I have to point out, you're standing on God's ground. You either need to get saved or stop trespassing. Right? That's what it comes down to. You can think of the debate over Christianity or biblical creation like a debate on the existence of air. Can you imagine two people arguing whether or not air exists? What would the critic of air say? He's making all these elaborate arguments. Oh, there's no such thing as air. All the while breathing air and expecting that we can understand his argument as the sound is transmitted through the air. Wouldn't that be rather strange? You see, the critic would have to...
Oh, hey, light isn't parallel magnetic fields. Excitations in the magnetic field, I should say, carried discretely by photons. No. It's a phenomenon that goes through the ether. Yeah, totally.
Use air in order to make a case against air. The fact that he's able to make his argument proves that his argument
is irrelevant. People have been wrong historically about all kinds of things in the natural world. Just because we didn't understand cells, we didn't understand atoms, didn't mean we were somehow contradictory, talking about cells as blobs of jelly and talking about atoms as little balls before we understood details more. That's not how anything works. Your logic sucks.
Argument is wrong. And it's exactly the same with folks who argue against the Bible, because the critic of the Bible must use biblical presuppositions in order to argue against the Bible. The fact that he's able to make an argument at all proves that his argument is wrong. Because any argument against the Bible is going to use what? Logic. They're going to say the Bible is illogical because it contradicts itself. Oh, really? You believe in the law of non-contradiction? How do you account for that in a chance universe? Or it'll be something about science, in which case they're relying on uniformity of nature, which is not guaranteed apart from Scripture. There's no reason to believe it. Or they'll say the Bible is morally flawed, in which case they have a sense of absolute morality, as if we're not just chemical acts. You see, any argument against the Bible has to first assume the truth of the Bible in order to get off the ground. And if you understand that principle, boy, is it powerful. Because you'll realize that all unbelievers have to stand on Christian ground, even to argue against Christian ground. And that is not going to work out well for them. Because if they were to succeed, then they'd lose the very ground on which they...
Well, a Renaissance fair is a specialty case, especially since you're depicting a time period where it actually would be more likely to get randomly stabbed. And with the Ren Fair guests, oftentimes they are prepared for combat.
Stand to make the argument. And again, I like to focus in on those three. Those are not the only three things that we use for knowledge.
Y'all, I just decided to check and see what Hovind did as his stream this morning. You'll never guess what he did. Abraham Part 6. How long is it anyway? Is it it's only 31 minutes.
We presuppose the reliability of our senses, but that makes sense in a Christian worldview. God's
Abraham Part 6 is going to be the worst thing I've watched on YouTube since Leonard Part 6. I never thought I'd be able to make that joke involving Hovind, but here we are.
designed my senses. They're not just an accident of evolution. They're designed by Creator. And so they work properly, perhaps not perfectly because of sin and the curse and so on. But our senses are basically reliable. Things like that are predicated on God's word being true. And again,
Yeah, chainmail is fucking awesome.
I like to kind of zoom in on morality because that's the easiest for people to grasp if you haven't heard this before. If God created us, morality makes sense. He's got the right to make the rules. If Adam's in your past, if God made you, he owns you. He makes the rules.
No one owns me.
And you're accountable to God, and you will answer to God.
That is a sickening thought, too. That I'm owned. Fuck that noise. That is disgusting. You're a piece of shit, and so is your theology.
Someday. So I have a good reason to behave in the way that God has prescribed. If I'm just a rearranged pawn scum, if I'm just an ape, God doesn't own me, I own myself, I make my own rules. And some people might say that. They might say, that's right, morality is relative. I get to make up my own rules, and so do you. I say, oh, interesting. Well, if I make up the rule that it's okay to kill you, would that be okay? If I were to pull out a gun right now, say, go ahead, make my day, can you give me...
Why do you people think like this? What the hell is wrong with you people? How does anyone hear someone come up with this and just think, yeah, they're totally sane? I don't think about this shit. I don't think my audience thinks random shit like this. Let me just come up with this idea of just shooting somebody. What the fuck, dude?
The reason why I shouldn't pull the trigger. What's he going to say? Now, if he says, well, you can't do that, because that would be objectively wrong, then he's made my day, because he's demonstrated that there's an objective morality that's...
No, it is fundamentally subjective, but again, it's a subjectivity that I think everyone who sees the situation would agree, no, that's bad. Thus making this subjective thing through shared consensus functionally objective, but it's still very much subjective.
That's true over everyone, and that makes sense in the Christian worldview.
But still, this morality stuff is irrelevant to the fact of the matter. Like, it really is. Morality means fuck all to the fact that obviously looking at the world, following the actual evidence, shows multiple billions of years on the planet, 13 billion for the universe, shows the apostle layer, shows, no evidence of worldwide flood, shows no evidence for your deity, shows many things claimed in your Bible to be an absolute lie. None of that has anything to do with morality. Morality has nothing to do with that. And it doesn't make your book any better. And indeed, your book contains massive amounts of immorality, sometimes glorification of such to a degree where you have to question the sanity of the authors, much like we're doing here with your gun analogy, to where you just have to question, what the fuck is this shit even about? It seems like it's just a hodgepodge of crap written in the stupid ages, which is what it is.
And if he says, well, yeah, I guess I can't come up with a reason I pulled the trigger and I win the debate that way, right? Because there's no laws.
Someone laughs at that. What is wrong with you people?
Of logic in the secular worldview, so as far as I can tell, there'd be no reason why you couldn't win a debate by simply shooting your opponent. I would never do that because I'm a Christian, so you understand. But I'm just pointing out.
Yes, because no Christians ever shot anybody. Yes. I think the people who are involved in the Waco siege would like to have a word with you.
It's inconsistent, isn't it? But people are so inconsistent. You shouldn't enforce your morality on other people. What did you just do? You enforced your morality on others. Interesting. Yeah, you can't escape that. We understand morality is objective. It's the same for everyone. Even people that deny it cannot live that way. And if you pull a gun on them, they will very quickly.
Because society prohibits such, because we are social creatures. If you want to be a murdering hermit living off in the woods somewhere, that's your own business.
Change their position on the issue. That hypothetical was used in the Bonson-Stein debate very effectively, and the atheists did not have a good comeback. How do you decide right from wrong? Apart from the biblical God, morality can only be relative, but people cannot.
Yeah, Tyler, you're right. We legitimately will never get out of the A's at this rate. Can't possibly have that many years left on him. He isn't getting out of the A's.
Not live that way. There's not too many responses to this, really. Well, no, you don't need God to be good. Good is what brings the most happiness to the most people. And I'm going to ask why. In your view, happiness is just a chemical reaction in the brain of a chemical accident. Why should I expend energy to try and achieve that? Do you go to your can of motor oil and say, are you happy?
Mark, we'll find out. And no, I don't talk to cans of motor oil. And what is your obsession with motor oil? I've got some kerosene over there. You want me to go say hi to it? Hi, kerosene. How you doing? Good to see you. Nice to see you're all hydrocarbony and stuff. Yep. If the cat hadn't have broke the chimney I had for the lamp you're in, a year ago, and I never bought another one because I don't know how to size the damn things, I'd love to be lighting you up right now because I love burning kerosene lamps in winter, but I don't have that option. So it would burn smoky and terrible, and I ain't doing that to myself. So you're just sitting there being a half full thing of kerosene. How you doing, though? Hope you're having a good time.
I want to make sure you're happy. It's a chemical accident. Who cares, right? This makes no sense. And even here, because some of you are thinking, well, yeah, we should be concerned about others. Yes, we should be.
You get another free Palpatine for Laura here. Why are we still on Abraham? Actually, Palpatine kind of turned into a Dalek there. Why are we still on Abraham? Explain! Explain!
In the Christian worldview, where people are made in the image of God. But you see, even here, he's subtly borrowing on the Christian worldview, isn't he? He's effectively saying, well, you don't need the Bible or God or anything. Just do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And I'm thinking, I've heard something like that somewhere before in the Christian.
Yes, probably because that concept was usurped from a general agreement that humans have had with each other for pretty much ever, since that seems to be one of the first methodologies that comes about in a social species.
Worldview, yes, we should be concerned about others. Not that their happiness is paramount, but
also the golden rule isn't actually in the Bible itself. I'll just usurp that concept.
Holiness is. We should be concerned about others because they're made in the image of God. But if you're a chemical accident, it makes no sense to be concerned about other chemical accidents. I debated a PhD neurologist one time. He's an expert on the brain. This was his response. He says the moral code is simply electrochemical impulses in the brain.
Fundamentally, when you break it down to abstractions, yeah.
I was asking about morality. What is morality in your view? What's a section of your brain that tells you how you should behave? But in your view, the brain's just a chemical accident. So you're just saying, I'm just...
No, you keep saying that. That's you guys' opinion of what we think. That's not what we actually think. And when it is described in such crude ways, it is to stress, when abstracted down, the outright oppositeness of reality to your magical make-believe story.
Following random chemistry. I've got chemistry going on in my stomach. Should I use my indigestion to tell me how to behave? That'd be interesting, wouldn't it? Or mix some chemicals together and whatever the response is, that's how I decide what I'm going to do. Because that's all he's saying, really.
Yeah, I mean, let's remember, every time someone talks about, what they did to Charlie Kirk, the they is another right-wing lunatic.
It's just chemistry. Well, chemistry is amoral. There's no morality to it. Chemistry just does what chemistry does. There's no right or wrong about it.
Well, yeah, that is stuff, but, our concepts of morality, our concepts of consciousness, our concepts, the sentience we have, the social species that we are is an emergent property of chemistry doing what chemistry does in a very particular way over a very long time. It's pretty fascinating. You should look it up. It's called evolution.
Some people say laws of morality are conventions adopted for the benefit of society. Very dangerous view. self-refuting view. Convention is something we all agree on and it works, right? Driving on the right side of the road. In which case, some cultures would say, well,
Honestly, Laura, if I felt like calling into the bastard again, I would. But I'm glad I didn't even try for Friday because he just had some weirdo on the entire time, some dead dude's wife.
there was a culture that said, let's kill the Jews. And everybody agreed on that except the Jews. They didn't like it so much. Would we say that's good? No, that's not good. Who decides what benefits society? Hitler had some ideas about what benefits society that I don't think we'd agree with. I hope you wouldn't agree with that. So, I mean, this is ridiculous. And even the benefit of society, benefit already assumes a standard of goodness that's objective, right? Otherwise, it's just
No, it doesn't.
arbitrary. We need laws of morality, Dr. Lyle. Otherwise, people would go around acting like animals. And you say, but in your worldview, isn't that what people are? Why would we have these laws that, animals don't have morality in that sense?
Yeah, they do.
And just to drill it home, consider an evolutionist who is outraged at seeing a violent murder on television. He said, I can't believe that man killed that little girl. That's terrible. He should go to jail. But my point is, he's an evolutionist. In his worldview, it's just one chemical accident getting rid of another chemical accident. Why should he be angry?
You people are deranged.
That's what we call a behavioral inconsistency.
And look at this. Look at this technique very carefully. I kind of let it slide, but this right here is the worst of this shit. It's disguised, but they are trying. This asshole, this piece of shit, is trying to outright vilify anyone who doesn't follow his magical fairy tale. The evolutionist, the atheist, by acting like this is the way we actually fucking think and presenting that as oh, we're unpredictable. We'll just do whatever. It's hidden, it's obfuscated, but it is most certainly there. And this idea, so that if you were to talk to one of these bald head goobers up here in the front row and be like, yeah, I'm an atheist, they'd be like, oh, you just think you're a bunch of chemicals. Don't shoot me. All kinds of weird shit like that. That kind of logic, that kind of thinking on somebody who, they know nothing about, that kind of ironic presupposition is funny coming from people who actually vote against the better interest of humanity in and of itself regularly, who don't actually care about others, who only care about themselves, and their bank accounts sure fucking show that. It's incredible. I will not sit here and be fucking vilified by your little goober ass. Fuck you, Jason. What's his fucking email? I'll send him a letter that just says that. Fuck you.
The way he behaves is not consistent with what he says he believes. He says people are just chemical accidents, but he gets upset when one is murdered. Why? If they really were chemical accidents. You don't get upset at chemistry.
Also, god fucking damn, he's just still on this shit. There is none of this is proof of creation. You gave a bunch of shit we already heard, then just spent the last half hour on the goddamn moral argument, you fucking chode.
You mix the vinegar and the baking soda and it fizzes. You don't say, bad baking soda, you shouldn't have fizzed that way, right? That's just what it does. Chemistry does what chemistry does. There's no right or wrong about it. The fact that he's angry shows that he understands.
Thank you. I do take pride in my Dalek. Although I don't care about Doctor Who anymore at all. My ex and I, that's what we bonded over originally. You think she should have had a clue, since my favorite thing about Doctor Who were the Daleks, on my personality and the reactions I have to the fact that I've been abused and mistreated and shit my entire fucking life.
And there is an objective moral code set by God that a person has violated because that person has freedom of choice. Chemistry does not have freedom of choice. If we're just a ball of chemicals, you don't have any choice in what you do. So again, he's standing on the Christian world using Christian principles to try and argue against Christianity. Folks, if you understand this, every argument against Christianity must stand on Christianity to get started. If you understand that, that is powerful. All you got to do is learn to see where the unbeliever is standing on Christian ground inconsistently while denying the very ground that he's standing on is true. And that is a very powerful and very useful.
Just claim shit. That's all you do. I'm sorry, this dude's really pissed me off with this crap.
Approach in apologetics. I'm going to skip some of these for time's sake so we can do some Q&A. But I hope you get the point. If you understand this, you can agree with the Apostle Paul and say, where is the wise man? Where is the scribe? Where is the debater of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? You see, it's the Bible that gives me confidence in defending the Christian faith, because God tells me knowledge is not possible apart from him, apart from biblical presuppositions. That's the argument I stand on. The science is secondary. I'm a scientist, but I know that there's always different ways of interpreting the evidence. But the only reason evidence is interpretable at all is because the Bible is true. We have reliable sense.
Grungvaldi with a $2 super chat pointing out golden rules in the Bible, Matthew 7:12 and NIV, which apparently reads, so in every... I gotta read it like Palpatine. So in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you, for this sums up the law and the prophets. So yeah, golden rule concepts. But the exact verbiage of doing to others as you would have them do unto you is yeah, that's where it comes from. So
Basically.
although I question the other translations and the particular verbiage they chose, it could be an NIV thing that leaked into society, but tomato, it being in there as it being in there, it still originates from people and was put in instead of the other way around.
We're able to think.
But it's nice to know where it is.
Think rationally, to draw logical conclusions, consider the options, choose the best, and so on. Things that make sense in light of the Christian worldview. And that's why I'm not afraid to debate people. I do debates at times. I don't love debating, but I'll do it. And I'm confident in my position because the Bible is true from the beginning. Peter, of course, says, but sanctify the Lord God in your hearts. That's the key. See how everything depends on God. And then you'll be ready always to give a defense to everyone who asks.
That's another thing. The number of crazy right-wingers who have immigrant wives is kind of amazing. I mean, I'm still of the opinion that Barron Trump and Donnie Boy's freaky-ass wife need to be deported fast as hell. She's an immigrant. He's an anchor baby. Get them the fuck out of here.
Asks you a reason of the hope that's in you, and all the more important to remember this last part with meekness and fear, with gentleness and respect. Because if you learn this method of defending the faith, it is powerful, and you can refute any argument that dares challenge God. And so it's all the more important that we do it graciously. I've been kind of blunt in the hypothetical answers I've given because I want you to get the point, but obviously we need to temper that with gentleness. Never at the expense of truth, though. Never at the expense of truth. But we do need to be gentle because, after all, we've been the critic at one point, all of us. We were against God, and unless God changed our heart, we'd still be against God. And because
I'm not against God like I'm not against Voldemort. Fucking morons.
Critics are deserving, they're made in the image of God, and they deserve respect on account of that, even if they deny it.
Then why don't we get it from you ass clowns and you all shut the fuck up trying to shove your fairy tales into everybody else's lives? Oh, right. Because you're assholes.
Still are made in the image of God. So again, it's not our job to open people's hearts. That's up to the Holy Spirit. As Dr. Bonson liked to put it, it's our job to close their mouths. And that's what this method does. It's not a gimmick. It's not a trick. People say, can you use this to prove anything, to prove other things? Can I use this to win an argument with my spouse? No. Unless it's on whether or not Christianity is true. That's the only thing it does, is it reveals truth. It's not a trick or a gimmick. All it is a way of revealing what's true by showing people that only the Christian worldview can make sense of those things necessary for knowledge, like laws of logic and science, and which is based on uniformity in nature and morality and things of that nature. So it's a powerful, powerful method, and always to be used with gentleness and respect. So the key is to stand on God's word while you're defending it, and never depart from that. Somebody says,
God, this clip art is fucking terrible.
But I don't believe in the Bible. Well, that's your problem. You should. It's the word.
No, I shouldn't, fuckface. Prove it.
Of God. It's ridiculous for you not.
Still haven't proved it. Have you proven it yet? Huh? When are you going to prove it? When are you going to get down and prove it? No, don't tell me. Look at the trees. Fucking prove it.
To believe in it. And then we can talk details and so on. That's fine. The book I've written on this topic, The Ultimate Proof of Creation, I encourage you to pick that up. We do have it over there along with some other resources. And
oh, yes. Buy our stuff, please.
I know I talk too fast, so I wrote the book really slowly so you can take your time with it. And there's examples in the back, too. I've got some appendices on actual conversations that I've had with folks where I've used this method, and you see how effective it is. It's devastating on anyone that dares challenges God. We have some follow-up DVDs on this topic, Nuclear Strength Apologetics, which just follows along what I've talked about all the way going to science.
Oh, you keep nuclear physics the fuck out of this, douchebag.
science and logic and show how those depend on the Christian worldview. It's a two-part set, Nuclear Strength Apologetics Part 1 and 2. What about folks who are Christians, but they read the Bible differently, and they say,
Eastern European women, submissive. Also Eastern European women, circa 1943. Precision snipers taking out Nazis en masse. Yes, real submissive there. Absolutely beautiful, but women from Eastern Europe terrify me. Although, if one took interest in my goofy self, I would not turn her down. You know, one turn down. Nah, kid. There's plenty of turn down. I don't know. I'm just being stupid. Totally like Eastern European chicks, though.
I'm not sure that Genesis is literally true and so on. Understanding Genesis. And I'll hit that for those of you that are able to come Sunday morning. That's what I'll be talking about during the main service there. Discerning truth, how to spot logical fallacies in arguments that evolutionists make.
Laura, if like analog copies or something exist, like if they were taped or something in 2012, huh? I mean, I got ways to copy stuff. You can make something happen if any kind of recording exists.
That's a valuable skill, knowing something about logic and being able to spot errors in reasoning. And it's a short book. You can read that easily in a day, and I think it'll really equip you to better defend the Christian faith. We have DVDs. We have Created Cosmos, takes you on a tour of the universe. That's a neat...
Boy, look at everything he has to sell. Man, why does he have so much stuff to sell? Look at it, all this. Is this going to a damn Q&A? Yeah, it goes into a freaking Q&A. I think we're done here. I don't care about anything else. He's done what he needs to. What a fucking waste that was. Okay, that was 2 hours 15 minutes. I cannot believe I spent that long on that. I clearly have problems for that. I am going to turn my clothes on back in the dryer, reset, turn around, and do Hovind. Even William Lane Craig doesn't use the presuppositionalist argument. He knows it's trash. Yeah. Craig is something else. That was funny. I talked too fast. Appreciate that. Low bar Bill Craig. This clown is a yek, isn't he? Oh, yeah. He is. All right. That's the end of that. Like I said, I'm going to do a quick reset, schedule up the Hovind stream. These guys are in trouble when DVDs stop having players. Yep. Would have to give the talk again and record it. They weren't recorded at the time. Okay, I got you. Did this at the start to save myself trouble of trying to figure out why he wasn't still an academic. Wonder how much he makes hawking books. Obviously enough to buy some kind of clothing. Not very good suits, but suits nonetheless. Certainly eye-opening on their nihilistic take on the world without God. Yeah, that's kind of the best thing we could get from this is seeing how they truly feel about, oh, you atheists just think because you're just a bunch of chemicals, you just go kill each other. Huh? No, dude. No. That's why prison's full of atheists and not Christians, you know. And yes, everyone be safe. And yeah, it's going to be a real quick turnaround. I'm going to grab some more soda. So I think 11:32 right now for me. I think probably in 8 minutes I'll start up Hovind. So yeah, don't go anywhere. I mean, it's going to be a separate stream, so look for that. But yeah, all right. Much love. Catch everyone next time.